Hey, good morning. And my name is Ken Walls, and I am so excited. Today is book launch day for this amazing book, Reverend Ike, An Extraordinary Life of Influence. And I have the legendary authors, Mark Victor Hansen and Xavier Eikerenkoetter on here. Forward by Bob Proctor. This is an amazing book. And you guys hang on. I am adding these two amazing gentlemen right now. Xavier, welcome. And Mark Victor Hansen, welcome to the live stream. It's book launch day.
Woo!
we are happy campers. And for you, those of you that are watching, you're going to get to see Reverend Ike live in a second. But let me tell you what you're getting here. And Xavier and I worked hard on this, but what you want to know is, what is your soul's journey? And Reverend Ike took this soul's journey that I've thought about. This is a journey of every man and every woman. And what happens is Xavier and I are going to unfold this for you and say, hey, wait a second. If Mark's right and you got to read at least one autobiography or biography a month, this is the book to start 2024 with. But buy it today because it's now out. It's available everywhere fine books are sold. It's available at Amazon, of course, and Barnes & Noble and Hudson and Books A Million. But this is what you've got to have because you are on a soul's journey. Xavier will tell you in the most articulate way I've ever heard that you are a soul that has a body and not a body that has a soul, and that you're ready to make this glorious new you transition. Is that right, Xavier?
Absolutely. Happy book launch day, everyone. We are so excited. This is a day we've been waiting for such a long time. And yes, today we're blasting the book off, hoping it's going to go into the stratosphere, but we're also grounding the book today by bringing it to earth. And along the lines of what Mark is saying is that anything that we manifest, comes from a higher realm, and it precipitates down where it grounds into the earth. And just like we did as souls, we came from heaven, we came from higher vibrational frequency, and we grounded into this earth plane. So today we're grounding a very important project. This book is a true labor of love. This man, Frederick Joseph Eikerenkoetter, my father, extraordinary man, extraordinary life, extraordinary, incredible influence. His story is an inspiration. His story is something that can help to lift and uplift you. That's why we wrote the book. That's why we're offering this book today to everyone. I'm just thrilled. I'm really excited. I want to thank everybody who has already pre-ordered. I want to thank everybody who sent so much love and so much gratitude and so many wonderful testimonies from people who have been touched by my dad, by his work, and by his life. And the legacy is only going to expand and continue from here. This book is a bridge to the next phase of Reverend Ike's amazing impact on the world. So we thank you for joining us today.
There are ministers, and then there are ministers, and Reverend Ike was the minister of ministry. He saved my life. I was bankrupt. I was upside down. I was despondent, disconsolate, suicidal. I was ready to slash my wrist. I went up to see him in New York at the time at 175th and Broadway, which is called Washington Heights. I went in, the place was packed with 5,000 people. He wowed my soul. I promise you, I get goosebumps telling you this. Xavier and I have put our life essence with his to escalate you. Xavier said, all comes from on high. You and I are here to ascend to higher spiritual heights, heavenly heights. Reverend Ike taught that in a pragmatic, practical way. I'd see people come in as in awful shape, not having the right clothes, looking worn out. And what he had is he had supernatural healing power to hit the divinity in each and every one of us and let them explode with their potential, because you're here with a definite DNA coding. And he's the guy that'll let you plug into it and find your DNA, RNA coding. That's why I said you're on a soul journey. Just like if you read Herman Hesse or if you read any of the Eightfold Paths, what happened is Reverend Ike will take you on a soul's journey. And his son and I, Xavier, have put together this book. And because I'm of Danish descent, we created smorgasbords. There's a smorgasbord that'll take you to everything he put in his mantra: health, happiness, joy, success, prosperity, and yes, lots and lots of money, because everyone should be abundant.
I can't wait to read I just got the book. Thank you, by the way, last night, when I got home from my office, and I was like, wow. And I tried to consume some of it, but there's only so many hours in a day. But I have a question, because I like to go through when I'm talking to somebody about a book that they've written, and kind of hit on some of the chapters that catch my attention in the table of contents. And I want to know, chapter 1 is Two World Changers Meet. What's that about?
Well, what happened is that I'm upside down, and I was working at Dale Carnegie Institute to learn how to become a professional speaker, which I did, and then a speaker that wrote, and then a writer that speaks, and now a writer that speaks and publishes. But what happened is all that happened because of one guy, Reverend Ike. I went and saw him, and I thought my life was over. I thought I'd screwed up. I thought my self-worth and net worth were the same. He got me to understand that whatever you're doing with the kingdom of heaven inside is going to show up outside, and I could change the kingdom by transforming my thinking, my life. And I did that. And when we met, I didn't mean anything to him other than I'm just one person out of 5,000, or one person out of millions and millions that were watching him here and in Africa. But suddenly I started to bloom, and I went to his church on a regular basis. I ended up teaching at his Business of Living Institute, and we befriended each other, and my whole life took off. There would be no chicken soup for the soul and a 500 million books sold, as far as I'm concerned now, if it hadn't been for Reverend Ike hitting my electric soul and saying, hey, wait a second, you've got soul ability, soul power. And then we ultimately did a lot of talks together, literally around the country, because I owned a company that was doing $100 million a year called Enlightened Millionaire Institute, the Enlightened Way to Wealth. And he was beyond spectacular on my platform after I'd been on his. And I did lots of stuff at his church.
So you're saying, had you not met Reverend Ike, you wouldn't be the #1 best-selling author of all time?
Nonfiction. That's correct. I really, I believe that in my heart and soul. And that's why I'm saying, look, everybody get this book. Xavier and I have put our imprimatur in it. We put our love, we put our soul energy into it, and our soul force. But I suggest, and I think Xavier will go along with it, I've never said it before, but I'm feeling really good about this. It'll wake up your soul force energy. Would you agree with me, Xavier?
No question. See, the thing is, I love someone posted, I don't do church, but Rev Ike I can rock with. Right? So here's the thing.
Hallelujah.
Right. Rev Ike will rock your soul. And we're talking about soul energy today. That's the thing. See, as human beings who are souls enwrapped in a physical body, we are spirits in physicality. We need to be connected with our soul. And with all of the work that I do, anything that I do, including this book, see, I wouldn't have done this work about my dad if I didn't believe in who he was, what he did. He was a soul connector. He helped people connect to their souls, that ultimate seat of self-worth and value and dignity from the God in me. And from that place of understanding God in me, I know I am worthy of all good things because I am a living soul given life by the Creator, animated by God themselves. The animating force of the universe flows through me at every second. So when we reconnect consciously with our souls, we are reminded of that fact, and we touch into that energy and we feel that energy. So let's look at how Reverend Ike rocks people's souls. Let's play that first clip. We've got clips from Dad to play.
And I want to answer Sweet Treats Overload. I love that name, by the way.
Well, me too. What a name.
That could be my middle name, actually. So you can go, anybody watching, make sure you go over to Rev Ike Book. It's scrolling across the bottom, revikebook.com. And if before we play that first clip, Xavier, I want to ask a question, because there's a great question that Jim Abbey asked, and I'd love to hear, who were some of the people who influenced and mentored your father?
Well, his father was a minister. A very, how do you say, broad-minded in some ways, an expansive minister, a Black man, obviously, who came up through, even before Jim Crow started. He grew up
Wow.
in that situation, but he had the idea that he could be successful and that he could create more than what a white dominated society told him that he could create.
Yeah.
And he was a minister. And so he actually mentored my dad after he started getting wind of my dad as a young preacher. Then he came around and started, taking some of the credit and mentoring my dad. And then you have the country preachers, the healers, the people who are baptizing people in the creek and healing diseases and doing these different things. They inspired my father. For the most part, it was the people outside of the mainstream church. And that's why my dad probably got kicked out of mainstream religion later, started his own thing. But those were some of his inspirations. But also there are the people like Mary Baker Eddy, P.P. Quimby, Neville Goddard, great metaphysicians and people who taught mind science and taught soul science and taught spirit science and the esoterics of the truth of how the breath and the spirit of God flows through us, makes us more conscious human beings and enables us to continue the creation, and by creating lives of joy and abundance that we want to have.
Man, that's beautiful. That's yeah. Mainstream anything doesn't like it when you ruffle their feathers. They don't like that. Let's watch this clip. Positive self-awareness. Here we go. You ready for this? You guys? All right, here we go. Here we go.
In this ministry, since we use the term positive self-awareness so much, I want to take a moment just to tell you what it is to me, what it means to me. Positive self-awareness means knowing who you are in God and who God is in you. This is what I call positive self-awareness. And knowing who you are in God and who God is in you, this leads you to believe that you can be what you want to be, do what you want to do, and have what you want to have. The other night, I spoke to a group of doctors privately, whom I will not name, because we did have a private reception. And among them was a very beautiful lady doctor. And she told us that she had never paid any particular attention to Reverend Ike. But one day, her little 5-year-old daughter came to her and looked in her face and said to her, "Mommy, I can be what I want to be. I can do what I want to do. I can have what I want to have." And she said to the child, "Where did you get that?" She said, "I heard Reverend Ike say that on television." And so this wonderful, beautiful lady doctor said, "Well, I just better look into Reverend Ike. He's got my child going around here saying I can be what I want to be." And this is what I mean when I talk about positive self-motivation. Believing in the God within you, believing in the divinity within you, believing in the good that is within you. Another term that I use in this ministry a lot is self-motivation. Say that term with me, everybody. Come on. Self-motivation. And when I say self-motivation, I mean self-moving. Say that with me. Come on. Self-moving. Say it again with your hands and voices. Self-moving. It means that each person should become a self-mover. In the words of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow in the Psalm of Life, he says, "Be not like dumb driven cattle." But every person should have a vision that moves him, that gives him power to go forward to his goal. And this is what I mean when I use the term positive self-awareness and positive self-motivation. It means I believe in myself. I believe in the God that is within me. I believe in the divinity that is within me. I believe in the mind of God that is within me. And by means of this God power, which is within me, I am motivated, I am moved toward the goal of the good which I desire. And when you understand and use these principles of positive self-awareness and positive self-motivation, they will enrich your life in every way.
I believe in the divinity in me. Now, positive self-awareness, he's not talking about ego. He's talking about the truth of the God within. This is the first key of what I call my father's keys to success, believing in the God within. And when you do that, as he says, knowing who I am in God and who God is in me, that is true self-awareness, God self-awareness, believing in the divinity in me. And I just want to take a moment to invite everyone to think about this. Do you know that God is in you? Do you know that God is in you? Do you know that God is in you? If you don't know it, can you conceive of the idea that God is in you? Can you start to believe that God is in you? And see, my father was of the ilk that if you don't believe God is in you, where else could God be? God is certainly outside, all around us, but God is within us as well. If God were not within us, we would not be alive. It's the animating force. It's the energy within every cell of our beings. Scientists tell us it's the mitochondrial, it's the ATP energy produced in the mitochondria of the cell. Yes, certainly. But what's behind that? There's a universal animating force that energy in our cells has precipitated from.
Wow.
God created, and we came alive. Do you believe that God is in you? God is in you. You are a living soul, given life by the Creator. That's foundational belief number one.
Hitchhiking on that, if God's infinite and you're made in infinite stuff, then you're infinite. And the first question that Ken asked was, what does it mean when two came together? Well, when Reverend Ike came together, he illuminated me. He illuminated my soul, my awareness. And you say, well, how does that go? Well, Jesus said, you'll know them by their fruits. Well, I've sold more books than anyone. We're pushing the edge of 600 million and over 500 million sold. Guinness Book of Records says myself as a nonfiction author and Mrs. Harry Potter as a fiction author are the two biggest selling authors in the world. But I wrote 321 books. Why? Because he woke up the infinite in me. He is the key that will turn on the engine called your soul experience. And I believe, and I think Xavier will go along with it, but he doesn't have to, but the soul runs the mind, which runs the brain, which runs the body. I think that's what Reverend Ike really taught me. That's not the way he would have articulated it. I think if we're sitting together, which we did at a lot of meals, he would agree, because what Xavier started with is there's a higher power, but the higher power is only acknowledged when you synchronize and plug into it. Would you go with that, Xavier?
For sure. And this idea that we are infinite, Mark, that you're bringing up. See, part of really understanding and believing that God is within us. See, the universe moves and is maintained and was created, but moves and maintains and continues through the faculty of energy and force. Okay, energy and force. And I don't mean force, not impact, not power over, but true power, which is an energy and a force. For example, take gravity. Gravity is one of the forces of the universe. And it not only holds us down and grounds us on this planet, we talked about grounding earlier, it is also a force that holds the earth in its spin holds us axis steady, and holds the Earth within its orbit and within its place in the solar system and the larger galaxy. Gravity is one of those forces of nature that the Creator used to create, to position, and continually uses to maintain. That very force is working within us. And there are ways you can, for example, work with that force. When you understand how that gravitational force even works in the cells and the atoms of your body, and also those electromagnetics keep the atoms, the electrons spinning properly around the nucleus and in the atoms that comprise our bodies. And on so many levels, we have to come to understand we are infinite. And there's so much about this, and I'm just so excited about book launch day. But we do have some guests coming on, and I want to make sure, we get queued up for our first guest. I don't know if she's
Let me just answer
I'm
Bree's
so excited.
question. Bree Sherry wrote, "Why is it so easy to believe in God in the sky and not God in the body?" I want to have the first shot at answering that, and then Xavier can. We've got a great minister that's finishing his doctorate of divinity at Harvard in a minute, and he can answer it. But my position is, we were all taught the wrong thing. We were taught the wrong, what Bob Proctor, who wrote forward to this book, paradigm. It's a paradigm. And Reverend Ike himself grew up in a paradigm where his parents believed, especially mom, that you were supposed to suffer in this life and get it in the next life. What happened is Galileo said, hey, look, the earth is not flat, ladies and gentlemen, it's round. And you can see it by the way the horizon goes. And they put him in jail for saying that, right? And when Marconi, said we can wirelessly send messages, they put him away too. So the point is, a lot of things are wrong beliefs. Like it's easy to believe God in the sky because that's what we were taught. But what Reverend Ike was the mold breaker, and he got me to believe God is in you. And once you understand that God is in you, you have infinite ability. And then he taught us to use your imagination, to visualize before you go to sleep at night, to realize all the good that you desire, whether it's a new car, whether it's a new house, whether it's a full bank account, a full pocket full of money. And he got us to a level of earth belief that everyone understood, and that you're supposed to be able to have the love of your life, which I do, and a good relation, and so does Xavier with Annette. And the point is, you can have it all once you decide to be and become it all, and then do what it takes so you have it. But the do is you got to take self-reliance to action. And he was forever saying, you got to do the do. And that's what we're teaching here. Xavier, you go along with that, God in the sky versus God in you?
Yeah, definitely faulty beliefs. See, our ability to believe in things is one of the great powers that God, the Creator, placed within us. Source put within us its own power so that we could continue the creation. We had the authority, the responsibility, the agency to use these powers: belief, imagination, desire, expectancy, a whole raft of powers, God powers that we have. The problem is, because we are unconscious of our true self-awareness, we misuse these things. We let religion tell us that we are not one with God. We let something, whether it's politics, you name it, interpose itself between ourselves and our source. Then we're lost. I take back my belief. God has given me authority in this life. I know I have the power of belief. Therefore, when I take that back and understand God is not in the sky, God is in me. Well, yes. Well, actually, God is in the sky also, because God is everywhere. But God is in me. And that unifies me with that sky father, with that power, and with that earth mother, and all of these, again, powers, forces of nature and spirit, and you name it. So
there's a great question on the screen, and I know we have a guest coming on here in just a minute, but I do want to address this. I'm not going to address it. I want you two brilliant men to address it, because I've often wondered this. I love Dr. Wayne Dyer, for example, who talked a lot about healing and stuff, right?
yeah.
So LK Brown, well, no, I'm sorry. Ellie says, why did Reverend Ike not recover and live a longer life? He helped God and others heal themselves. how can I look at this in a better way? I've often thought the same exact thing about Wayne Dyer. Like, what the evidence is there that they helped others heal. So what prevented them from doing the same for their
let me
own
answer it. I'll answer first and Xavier can second. Two things. Number one is healers can't heal themselves. They can heal everybody else, but they can't heal themselves. And that's universal. And I've been with most of the great healers, inclusive of, we've written a book with an 89-year-old lady called Healed, and she's selling a gazillion copies to Sarah O'Mara, who runs Child Help. That's the problem. You can't heal yourself. And now Xavier, I'm going to have him talk to it too. I think the doctors were maligning his body also. I will say that. And I know I shouldn't besmirch doctors.
Interesting. Well, very interesting question. Well, why did my dad pass at 74? Why did Wayne Dyer pass when he did? Why does anybody die when they do? Why was Christ crucified at 33? My first answer is that you don't know the individual destiny of the soul. You don't know why, unless you know the soul of that person. I will say that my father felt that his work in this form was done, that he accomplished what he came to accomplish. And I think at a soul level, that's often a reason why people leave. Ultimately, it's between the individual and their soul as to why they move on, just like, why are we born when we're born? Ultimately, to me, it's a soul level choice. And I can't say what that is for anyone unless I know them at a soul level and they have shared that with me somehow. But I know my dad, for example, did say he was going to continue to teach and preach from the other side. And, here you go. Right? This is the next dispensation. So his work continues. And one thing,
still going.
Exactly. And one thing about life and death, we tend to get so caught up in the form, this physical form. Just remember that this is the clothing for the soul. And the soul is immortal. The soul and spirit is infinite. It continues. So the waves and the energy, the force that my father is in consciousness continues to move right now. So let me use that as a segue. My father has touched so many people. And the first guest that we're bringing on, I met maybe just over a week ago, a remarkable woman named Joy Donald. She is, and she has an amazing testimony about how my dad, her family used to listen to my dad and what the connection is there. But she is such a wonderful, positive, successful mover in the world. And she's co-founder for the Center for Intersectional Media and Environment. She's written 2 books and was a best-selling author on Amazon for African-American poetry. So let's please bring on Joy Donald.
And she's beautiful. Look at
Hello,
that.
Joy.
Hi, Joy.
Nice
Hi,
to meet you.
everyone. Ken, it's so lovely to meet you. Mark, Victor, Hansen, it's nice to meet you. And Xavier, it's lovely to see you.
Oh, so good to have you on. Thank you for coming today.
I was backstage and my heart was beating in my chest as I was listening to, what you were saying in relation to, like, you don't know what someone's agreement is in relation to how long they're going to be on this planet, but they can continue to be here even after their body is long gone. And I do not have, unlike the rest of you, I do not have my Reverend Ike book yet. I'm looking forward to getting it, and congrats on the launch. But that is definitely something that I'm thinking about, even as I'm here to kind of talk about the connection that has always been there, but has recently become a talking point in my life. Hence the journey that got me here. I don't know. No, we didn't talk beforehand. Like, should I pause for a moment or can I just get into it?
Hey, I was getting ready to say, I thought I was just facilitating a live stream, and here I am attending a church service. So this is awesome. Like, I keep getting chills all over my whole body. If you guys aren't getting it, go to revikebook.com. I just have to say that. Go to revikebook.com. and get your copy ordered now. Don't wait. Don't wait. So please go, Joy. I'm loving this.
Yes.
You know, my my goodness, my grandmother was really the gateway into how Reverend Ike has been the kind of this beautiful soundtrack in my life. As Xavier shared, I'm a writer, I'm a producer. I co-founded a center for intersectional media and entertainment, where we basically like look at the stories that we tell, right? And I I believe in storytelling. I pay attention to storytelling because storytelling has always paid attention to me. My grandmother was an amazing storyteller. She was what we would probably call now an herbalist. She was a mystic. And I think that she had a lot of beliefs about potential and metaphysics that she didn't really have anyone reflecting that back to her until she stumbled upon Reverend Ike. So this is my maternal grandmother that I'm talking about. My mom's side of the family, just like Reverend Ike, you know, born into Jim Crow in North Carolina, knew that always, right? So there was this terraforming agent around them, around their bodies, separating them geographically, actually having an environment that was organized in its abandonment of them, trying to impose impoverishment upon them in relation to what they could potentially earn, become, go out into the world and show up in certain ways. My father and my mother were both born in the 30s, just like Reverend Ike. And to look at how there's, you know, this energy that showed up within Reverend Ike around them in relation to thinking differently about poverty in and of itself, right? When I talk about Jim Crow as a terraforming agent, I say that it's not only trying to be used as a technology to alter the landscape around you geographically. You can't use this water fountain. You can't go in this pool. You cannot be in this neighborhood or cross this bridge. But it also tries to terraform your mind. It existed to convince people that poverty was not something that was being forced upon them, but it actually was inherent to them. It was intrinsic upon them, that it was a natural condition, a natural order. These terraforming agents, I call them technology because just like your phone makes it possible for you to talk to someone across great distance as if they're right there beside you, it's a technology that alters the world. But the thing about metaphysical messaging is that it invites you to look beyond the altered landscape and actually see the natural world, and then look beyond the natural world to the source of all things. And that was what my grandmother kept speaking to me. That was what kept showing up. We would be in the garden together, and she's talking to me about the soil and the things that exist within the soil, and how the sunlight and the soil and all of that feeds together, making that morning glory grow up against the house, right? And the morning glory is growing from the soil, but it's also growing literally from the air, pulling the carbon out of the sky and growing. And that interconnectivity of life, you know, she was kind of speaking to me about growth strategy. I found that inherent in my work as I looked at story, as I started to think, how does a story actually form an economy? How does it get stakeholders and shareholders and grow and get energy and build community around itself? Well, it's following the same model of growth in nature that we see amongst all things, right? You've got the source and you've got the field, and we've got lots of language for what we're seeing within the field. But that field is interconnected, just like when the aspen trees all change color at the same time. But you look beyond the soil, you look at the roots, and you realize they're all interconnected because it is not aspen trees. At the root, they are one tree. And that is why they are turning color all at the same time. So that interconnectivity that my grandmother was constantly speaking to me, that growth strategy, it was like the air I was breathing, right? Like I'm pulling that energy out of the sky around me, out of the air around me. And so she would be in the kitchen and she's cooking and she's humming, and I'm hearing Reverend Ike in the background, right? She is talking all of this love and abundance over me, even though she grew up in such, again, terraformed, strategized, extreme oppression. But it did not oppress her ability to see futures within me. And every time she would give me a birthday card, every time she would give me a Christmas card, any holiday, there would be a little piece of money inside of it. And she would say, put this toward your future Rolls Royce. Um, I just smile because as we talked about, why do people leave when they do, right? There's so many things that come to mind with me. And I kind of think to myself, do they actually leave? Right?
Right.
There's nowhere to go.
Right. And the energy, once it's created, can never be destroyed. And all of that abundant creative energy is flowing to us and is flowing through us. And that was kind of like the messaging that I was constantly getting from my grandma, that I was getting from my mom as they were stepping out into this world. That yes, there was, civil rights and everything. And so things were opening up and my family was able to accomplish extraordinary things. And how that fire, that was in their belly drove them to seeing the wasteland that they got handed and figuring out how to build us pleasure gardens from single seed, right? Wow. And all of that continues to flow through my family, and I keep finding it within me. I now am looking back, and I knew that my grandmother and those lessons and what my mom imparted to me was always there, and the way that I was creating, the way that I was writing, the way that I was thinking about things. But now I'm realizing how much of that was, again, being reflected back to them, confirmed and affirmed by those messages being put up by Reverend Ike, right? And I'm having a deeper appreciation for the mysticism and the metaphysics that is in my own work. I've written really weird books. The very first one is called Beyond Brand, and it's called Brand, but it's actually not about brand. It's about the legacy you want to live and leave. It's about looking at media as a stream of energy, a current. It's about thinking how to use your public image, which you certainly have in this day and age, and actually using it in a way that, harnessing it in a way that you maintain and amplify your joy and create community around it. So that's why I called it Beyond Brand, right? It's a personal branding book that's actually a personal development book that's actually about living and leaving a personal legacy, a cultural legacy. And I have to admit that so much of that was in me to be able to write in that way because of that energy around my family, the what they wanted to propel into the world, and how, especially with my grandmother, Reverend Ike was reflecting those things back. I look back at things that I came across and I continue to come across, as my grandmother has, like I said, not physically been here for a long time. But I can, to this day, pull out Polaroids, photos, from me being a little tiny girl, right? Images of my mom, of my dad, of my brother, where my grandmother had taken the prayer cloth and she had added her prayers to the prayer cloth. So it's like she juiced it up with grandma-ness, right? And then she basically cut it up and she would tape it to our crown chakra or our third eye or our heart chakras. Now, I don't know exactly what she was envisioning, what she was sharing, what she was putting into that as she was putting it there. But I don't think it's a coincidence that she chose those chakras the way that she did. And
that's giving generational blessings, Joy. And exactly. Then you're doing it to all the people that are listening. If you'll read the copy that goes across the screen, everybody is loving and in adoration. And what Xavier was much younger than me, as you can see by looking at the screen, but he was at church services that I was for 7 years, and I watched people like you come in and literally transform, because like grandmother and mother got the message and got the prayer cloth, which the prayer cloth actually was started with Apostle Paul, which wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, as you know, and he did prayer cloth because he couldn't go everywhere. So he cut up his clothes because that was all he had, and sent it out to the different, the many churches. And those churches, the people got healing, they got blessing, they got transformation. And he was talking through the Spirit of Christ. And the same thing, that's why what you said a second ago is you can't die. Spirit lives forever. Spirit's eternal. What Xavier was alluding to earlier, you came in as spirit and just inculcated this clothing called a body. And all Reverend Ike says, look, let's go back to make sure you understand what Paul said: be transformed by the self-renewing of your mind, your soul, your heart, everything she just did through the three main top chakras.
Thank you for yes to everything that you said, right? And again, these are the ways that you look back, and I see how my grandmother left almost what I call these spiritual voicemail messages for me, right? Like all throughout. So she's still there. I still pull her forth, right? And I create on demand. Okay, you cannot expect the muse to show up. Right. It's like you can't demand the muse show up, but I basically have a standing appointment with her on a daily basis for her to show up. And this is part of why I pay attention to story, and I pay attention to the mindfulness, and I pay attention to the somatic healing, right? Because you cannot actually use this beautiful companion that you have as your body to be the bridge between the immaterial and material, to pull all of this forth and be, like I said, your ride or die within this journey of that, if you are not at home in your own flesh. And these terraforming agents, they seek to distance you from that. They strive to make you think you are automatically deficient, that you were born deficient, that you will never be enough. So when you look in the mirror, you do not see divinity reflected back through your own eyes. And how will you actually create at the fullness of your creative capacity if you are not at home in the body? We know the formula of flow state in relation to even neurotransmitters, right? We know that part of what happens is that you go hypoprefrontal, you drop out of the inner critic in the front part of your brain, and whoo, now you are in your heart, right? The biometric flow of your heart. There is no fear, there is no second guessing, there is no doubting. You just flow. And you can do it individually, and you can do it collectively. You see a team on the court, and they're just landing every single shot because they are in the zone, right? And we are at a place right now where collectively we need to be in the zone. So how do we get into the zone individually and together within ourselves, within our families, our neighborhoods, our societies, our nations?
Yeah. You hit the right question and the right suggestion. And all I'm saying, and I know it sounds like I got a best interest, but Reverend to me, because what he teaches is that you get alignment with God, and then you have what you were talking about is instant manifestation. He'd do such simple things as he'd go into a shoe store, I think it was size 9. He said, blue shoes. And they said, we don't have any. He said, go back, you'll find them. And the guy said, we don't have them. He said, well, look, you didn't have them. It wasn't in your computer. So you now give them to me. You should give them to me free because there's nothing in your computer. You don't know what to charge me. So it ought to be a gift.
But again, you're talking about people that made a way out of no way, right? That continued to find the possible within the impossible. And I think that that is part of why Reverend Ike journeyed with my family the way that he did, because like I said, my parents were contemporaries and they are still here, you know, and it's very recently, my mom her body is starting to go through changes. It's like she's getting into that season where the leaves are changing color on the tree. And I think about this poem by David Ignato that says, I wish I understood the beauty of leaves falling. To whom are we beautiful as we go? And my mother is very beautiful as she goes. Right? And there is still so much lesson being imparted within that. And she still speaks with the same fire, She still laughs with the same, full body laughter, even though the body is starting to let go. Letting go is grace, right?
Right.
Mm.
Letting
She
go is
is getting
taking
to
off
the
the
end
tight
of,
shoe. Right. It's simple.
right. It's like she's done.
Joy,
She's
we've
done.
had a few other people coming on, so I've loved every word you've had to share, and I think I speak for all of us. And you certainly got accolades. We will have you on again in the future if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Before we let her go, Joy, someone just wrote, "You're bringing a word," and that's very true. So, in honor of what you're bringing us, thank you for bringing in the grandmother energy, the mother energy, this interconnectedness, and the truth that we're linking heaven and earth in this physical form. I'd like to just take a moment and invite everyone so that we can embody this energy and this truth. Let's just invite everybody. Just close your eyes and let's center. Let's go into
Unless
this.
you're driving a car. If you're driving right now and listening to us, keep your eyes open.
Yeah, of course. If you're sitting there in your own space, just take a moment to center. And as Joy spoke of the roots of the plants that her grandmother taught her about, you can imagine right now that out of your feet, out of your tailbone, there are roots going deep into the earth. And as those roots go deep into the earth, they connect you into the great mother, into the great grandmother who holds us every day of our lives and never lets us down. And at the same time, there's energy streaming down into you from the cosmos. Some speak of that as the Sky Father, however that manifests. But these energies link within your heart. And as you bridge heaven and earth, you can feel your own eternity, the God in you, and that you are animated by the forces of nature. So just take a moment in this presence and in this consciousness to feel into that state, into that flow from above to below, and cycling back around through you again. And let's breathe into that place. Deep breath of flow and release. And let's take this awareness with us. Let's really embody this. What we're doing today, we're not just talking about these wonderful ideas. We want to embody these truths. We're going into the substance of a great teacher, a great father, a great mentor to many people. Someone who knew that God was within him, that God is within him. And we're doing this to magnify that truth within each one of us. So in that consciousness and in that presence, we thank you, Joy, for being with us. And believe you me, Reverend Ike Legacy, we will be availing ourselves of your expertise of this interconnected heaven and earth branding that you are such an expert at. And we thank you for being here on our book launch day.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Joy.
And as we go to the next person, it says on their screen, REVIKebook.com. Go there. Make sure you type it in and give us your address and email and phone, because both Xavier and I, together and alone, are going to be traveling around the country, and Joy will show up at some of those things, I suspect, as will Ken. And we want to make sure you're live and living in person and join us, however that looks for you. Just like Reverend Ike did the mega tours and was an evangelist more than a minister, and filled Madison Square Garden in Atlanta and the Shrine Auditorium in LA and the Cow Palace in San Francisco, and on and on and on. I can go just because I got it memorized, because I said someday I want to grow up and do that. And then sure enough, I did. Thank you, Joy.
So
Thank
amazing.
you.
God bless you,
Joy,
Joy.
thank you. It's great meeting you. Thank you.
It's great meeting you, Ken, and you all keep having a wonderful stream. I'll be watching.
Blessings.
Thank you. Wow, that was absolutely amazing, amazing, amazing.
Are we
Amazing
going
woman.
to Rev Kev next, Xavier?
Say again.
Is Rev Kev next? Is that who you want to share?
Yeah, is Kev ready to go on?
I think Rev Kev is ready to go on if you guys are ready to have him.
Why don't you introduce him, Xavier? Because you're his lifelong buddy. I mean, I can do it if you don't want to, but
Well, absolutely. Reverend Kevin Ross. So, Reverend Kevin Ross wrote the preface of the book.
brilliant.
He also helped with formulating some of the earlier versions of the book. And, he did some of our early interviews, a few years back. And he was mentored by my father. He is like a spiritual brother to me. We connected very strongly after my father passed. He is pastor of Unity Sacramento, a wonderful New Thought church here near here, but in Sacramento, California. And just a wonderful man. He's recently received his master's from Harvard. And Kev, let's bring Rev Kev on. He's got so much positivity to share with us. God bless you, brother.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you, brother Xavier, Mark, and Ken. Thanks so much for having me. And what a joy to experience joy. That was just beautiful.
Absolutely, yeah.
This is great. Happy book launch day, everybody. This is a dream come true. I know for you, Alchemex. I've got my copy right here.
All right.
Do you have your copy on book launch day, everybody? You want to get one? Getting one near your heart. Because what we're getting to share, first of all, Xavier, I just want to say congratulations. And I read the inscription that you wrote in my book. You said Dad would have been and continue to be very appreciative to you, as am I, for helping to preserve and advance his legacy. But I want to say that I know he is saying of you, you are my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. As we're talking about accessing the ancestral realms, I feel his aura and energy activated on this day with us. He is very much present and he is smiling from the cosmos. In fact, he's tickling the stars and having the ethers light up on this special day. And I believe that everyone who gets connected to what's being launched today, I believe they're going to get the Reverend Ike special gift that he has that connects with his energy, which is one of extreme joy and abundance. And I know that as we're closing 2023 and thinking about our lives and taking inventory over the journey that we've taken thus far, most of us are looking forward as well, asking ourselves, how can I expand and express and release more and a greater version of my soul and myself? And I'm telling you that this book will connect you to the vibrational frequency of a powerful mind and man whose story is no different than your story. And I think that was one of the things that I love the most about Reverend Ike. He made it his business to add a line of his life into everybody's everyday story. And I felt so privileged on so many occasions to be knowing that my story and his story are now intertwined. But not only that there was this mutual exchange of energy that we were able to provide. And it did so much for my self-esteem, my self-worth, and my sense of who I can be in the world and for the world. And all of us know right now, like more than ever before, the world is looking for lights to bring about the shift that we need at this present time. And if you ever needed a shift, maker. He would give you a swift shift in the pants. Reverend Ike can do it. And what he was known for is simplifying the complex. So when he would say things like, "You can't lose with the stuff I use," he got your attention. But his intention behind getting your attention was to have you come into an awareness of the invisible laws that govern all of life, that would transcend your present set of conditions. That he helped us to understand that no matter your race, your creed, your color, your ethnicity, your gender, your religious persuasion or lack thereof, if a certain set of conditions get met, then a lawful process must move irrespective of who you are. If I plant a watermelon seed in the ground and that ground meets the right conditions, it doesn't matter if I'm a black man or a white man or a gay man or a woman or anybody. So he was adamant, and he used his life to demonstrate that was possible. And I'm always excited about the end of the year, because it's a wonderful time to do self-reflection and evaluation, but don't fall into the trap of beating yourself up. Reverend Ike would say, don't waste your thought beating yourself up. The world will do that for free, free of charge. So if you didn't hit your goals, if you didn't meet the high intentions that you set for yourself, if you made a set of mistakes this year, I made some mistakes this year. I stunk it up this year in some places I'm not the proudest of. Reverend Ike is here to help us to understand that we can turn every mistake into a retake. So you and I have the power to redesign our lives. And this story brings together the voices, the oral histories of eyewitnesses and those that walked alongside him, but also some unsuspecting characters that had tremendous influence on his life. And that's the other thing. Reverend Ike was a master mentor, but also a master influencer who is helping us to see that we have that same capacity and power. And I always like to say, no matter how short you think you are, there's someone looking up to you, taking note and notice of you, and is being inspired by your light. So some of the individuals in this book whose stories we share, they're going to be surprising. I'll just take you to one chapter. I'm not going to read the chapter, but I'll give you a little teaser. If we go to, if you have your book, you want to go to page 33. But the title of that title of that chapter is A 14-Year-Old Minister and a Prostitute.
I was going to ask about that chapter. Come on, man. That's awesome.
But before you do that, Rev Kev, we have 3 people go across work, and I purchased a book. Ladies and gentlemen, you can get it at all the normal places, but I want to tell you can even get it at Target. You can even get it at Walmart. You can go to walmart.com, target.com, amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com, hudson.com. I don't know where your favorite place to buy a book is, but we want you to have it. Now go ahead, Rev Kev, because this is a great story. And you know, and it's some other ministers say, well, that's X-rated, but look, we all got to get along.
Well, you know, X really means the unknown. And right now it's X-rated because you don't know the whole story. It is the unknown. And so you want to go and find out. We want to get the salacious out of going. What is this business of a 14-year-old minister and a prostitute? What is the value that this prostitute had with Reverend Ike? I had to tell it. You want to find that out, because I believe that it will speak to some of the ways that we underestimate ourselves. And Reverend Ike was always helping us to see by his own personal example, right? That you and I are a once in a lifetime event in human history, priceless in every way and deserving of love and a life of health, happiness, love, prosperity, success, and money. And he demonstrated that over and over again. And I just want you to experience through the eyes and the lens and the heart. I love seeing Bree ordering and KK ordering. That's awesome. Order it. And you know what would be really cool if you order it and have conversations about some of these stories and see if you can find threads of your own life in these stories, because I believe some of the people who are bearing witness in these stories, as well as what Xavier shares, you know, as his son, about his father, his famous father. You know, I, over the years, having shared the journey with Reverend Ike I've known him since I was 3 years old. In fact, the first time I was angry with my mother for an extended period of time, it was because my mother, who sang in the choir at my church, Christ Universal Temple, growing up, she and the entire, I think it was 300 voices at that time, choir, went to New York to do a cruise with Reverend Ike and left me with my god sister for a week. And I was mad with my mama, because I was 3, that she left me to go away on a cruise with Reverend Ike. So I've known Reverend Ike in some way, shape, or form since I was 3 years old. My first impression of him, I was angry because he took my mom away for a week on a prosperity cruise or something that they did. But what I want to share about the journey with Reverend Ike, he was an embodiment of joy and lavish abundance. One of my first times connecting with him, and I don't write about this in the book, in the preface, but one of my first times connecting with him, I simply wrote him a letter. And I said, hey, me and my buddy David, who Dr. David Montgomery, some of you may know him, we were tag team youth motivational speakers, and we used to tour the country with a very similar message, inspired by people like Reverend Ike and Les Brown and Dr. Johnny Coleman. And we're teenagers, just starting out at Morehouse College. And we were speaking in New York for a mayor's conference. And we knew Reverend Ike was in New York, so we said, we're going to see if we can come and meet with Reverend Ike. And somewhere we read that if you get a chance to meet with somebody successful and prosperous, be kind enough to treat that person to lunch. So David and I, between the two of us at that time, college students, we had $200 between us, $100 each. And we said, we're going to treat Reverend Ike to lunch. Reverend Ike did respond in that letter and invited us. He says, yes, let's come have lunch. And he sent a limousine to pick us up. Now, we're teenagers in college, but he sent a limousine to pick us up and took us to a restaurant, a French restaurant in Long Island, New York, called La Muscat Restaurant. And so David and I have finished our engagement. We're going down there. We're excited. We're going to treat Reverend Ike to lunch. And when we walked in the restaurant, the table, there was a spread on the table. Reverend Ike had ordered the left and right side of the menu already. He had an entourage of people there with him, standing there. And so David and I, and he was there with outstretched arms like a father in the story that you would read about the prodigal son come home, he was outstretched arms, and there was this joy and burst of welcoming. And it was like, wow, I am about to meet. We were in his presence. His infectious laughter really showed me several things in that instance. Number one, the joy of sharing, the joy of togetherness as we are in the holidays, the joy of breaking bread and a meal together. But also, he had healed some things within his own story to have what we now would label, what we would now label today, Black joy. He healed some things in his story to have that overflowing joy. So David and I went in the restroom for a moment to wash our hands. And we said, maybe we should treat Reverend Ike next time. We don't think our $200 is going to get it this time.
That's not even enough for the tip.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
That's great, Kev. Thank you. Thanks for that story. That's awesome.
That's
And
awesome.
you can tell from my spiritual brother's excitement how my dad's spirit affected people, how his awareness and his consciousness positively resonated to people. And see, when I said earlier that the universe operates and is maintained by energy and force, energies and forces of nature, and the cosmos, the force of our consciousness and our spirit. Again, you see how these vibrations flow out and affect people like Joy Donnell and Rev Kev here, and Mark Victor Hansen, who Mark attributes so much of his success from my dad's influence. There are millions of stories. There are so many testimonies. The influence, that's why the book is called Reverend Ike, An Extraordinary Life of Influence. These waves of consciousness ripple out, and it changes everything across time and space. By my being here where I am, by you being where you are watching us, we're changing each other right now with the flow of our consciousness. When we unite, where two or more are gathered, there I am in your midst, and miracles happen. And Kev, I just want to bring it home with some of what you said to the people, to our friends watching. One of the great things you said is, how can I expand and release a greater version of my soul and myself? This book shows us how to do that, because as you said, it's not just my dad's story, it's everyone's potential story. The success that this man created and manifested from his life as a little boy in the Jim Crow South to a minister of an untold success and influence on the world, we can experience that in our own way. It's not going to be like his, it's not going to be what his was, because we are individual and unique souls. But you will find keys in here to manifest that life that you desire, that positive influence. You can send waves rippling out that will change for the good yourself, starting with yourself, family, friends, community, society, the world, the entire planet, and it will continue to ripple out beyond the cosmos, coming back to you in a never-ending cycle of increase and enjoyment, as my dad used to say.
Yes.
This is your story too. When you read this book, you will discover the shift maker in you.
Yes.
So
I have two requests. I want to enlist our audience members to number one, be great givers. And you can give today by sharing this stream out with all of your friends and family, no matter what platform you're on. Number two, we are streaming on so many different platforms with hundreds and hundreds of people watching. I'm going to ask everybody to do this one thing to make this clickable from inside the stream itself. If you will put www.revikebook.com in the stream in the comments and hit send as a comment, that makes it clickable for anybody. But you have to put the www in there to make it clickable. Put that in the comments, just like this right here. Look at that. Rev Ike Legacy already nailed it. That's what we need right there. Everybody put revikebook.com, www as a comment. That makes it clickable for everybody. And share this out, and let's get thousands and thousands of people on here absorbing this information.
I'm going to do it
Wonderful,
now.
Ken.
I want to hitchhike on what Ken said, and I'm going to add the third one, and that is, please, as a favor, not to me or us, because our future days are paid for, get at least 2 copies, and if you can afford 10, get 10, and give it out as the best Christmas gift you've ever given. Because people right now are feeling they're in the dark, they're feeling lonely. We have 3,000 people a day committing suicide because they don't feel there's any hope or any help in the future. And this is, like I said, the book, as far as we're concerned, that will plug you into your greater good, your greater life, your greater happiness, your greater fulfillment. And I was at my chiropractor yesterday, and he's been going through a little bit of sickness himself and his 4 family members, and he wanted abundance. And I said, look, I bought you a copy of this book just because. And he said, why would you do that for me? I'm just your doctor. I said, no, you're my friend and you're my doctor. The point is, we all need to give a little piece of light, because remember, a little light banishes all darkness, like Xavier was saying a minute ago. And this book carries the light. And the thing I like to say most is that President Jefferson said, if my candle's lit and yours isn't lit and it's been blown out for whatever reason in life, you light yours on mine, but it makes the world 4-fold brighter. Ladies and gentlemen, you and I are here to bring soul energy, to bring life energy, to bring spiritual energy, to bring soul awareness to a world that is lacking it, as far as I'm concerned. Now, you may be going to church and be deep in spirit, but this will escalate you more to higher levels. Like, it says in the Bible, St. John, climb the ladder. We're trying to help you climb the ladder. And what Xavier correctly said is, we're giving you the techniques, the technology, the book, and you're not only going to read it, but you're going to reread it, and you're going to share it with your kids and your grandkids. And this would be maybe the most important thing you give to future progeny. But get a couple copies and share it. And people will thank, we're going to have Rev Kev to say it as a prayer, but people will thank you in their prayers. Is that right, Kev?
Absolutely. We're meeting people, as Reverend Ike would say, at the point of their need. And I know if you're anything like me, Rev Ike came along at a point in my life where I needed to touch the hem of his garment, so to speak.
Yep.
And as you're reading this book, as you're interacting with his story, of course, you're going to find his story. You're going to get a chance to touch the hem of his garment, but you're touching really the hem of his consciousness. Words are living messengers. And so fortifying our consciousness with living messengers of hope, empowerment, and what he loved to have, and this book is full of them, is success ideas. He taught us that every idea comes fully clothed with everything you need to bring it into manifestation. And so as we're moving into 2024, into a new year, if you got one right idea from Reverend Ike, I believe it will set you up for the best year of your life. And I know if you're anything like me, you're claiming that 2024 is the best year of your life. I believe this book is chock full of rich ideas, prosperous ideas, ideas of healing, miraculous ideas. That was one thing and we can all talk about this. He had a reputation of being a miracle worker, but he did not look at miracles as magic. A miracle is the outworking of an orderly process, a lawful process. And so he understood how to use the invisible laws that govern the universe and to integrate that as the predominant activity of his awareness. He made those laws his predominant thought pattern. And it would seem that when he spoke or when he acted in certain ways, that magic happened, but it was not magic. It was his mastery over certain invisible laws. And so this will get us on that trajectory in our own experience. And so you want to get 1, 2, 3 rich ideas. Somebody said, KK says, I'm claiming it right now. I'm claiming it too. By the way, that's my nickname. One of my nicknames is KK, and my kids' nicknames are KK. So, hey, KK. But yes, let's claim this for ourselves going into this new year. And it's a good book also to have rich discussions around. And some of the people in this book who share their stories, they are our contemporaries. They're with us right now. And so you might know some of them.
Indeed. One of the people in the book, besides you, Reverend Bishop Jack Bomar, is going to be joining us in the noon hour. He'll be here. And there may be a special surprise guest he has with him. I'm not sure yet. But Kev, what you're saying, it's very important. And what you're saying about using this book to help this be the best year we've ever had. 2024 opens up the door to the miracles that we desire, to the transcendence, to the personal transformation. And so this first key of my father's success, identifying with God in you. The second key to his success, as I've defined, from that power of God within, there are powers. There is energy and force that we can deploy, as I said earlier, like our ability to believe, like our desire, our expectancy, our attitudes about things. And we learn how to use these things like a painter, using paint and brushes and the canvas and creating our reality. And we develop a certain artistry when we bring consciousness to this, doing it consciously with, as he said in the first clip, our divine self-awareness, knowing that I am one with God. God is my Father, my source, creator, however you want to relate and whatever terminology you use. That power is within me, and therefore there are powers that I have to deploy. So he deployed those powers. For example, his power of imagination. And you will learn in this book how he did that and how you can do that. You can become an artist deploying those beautiful artistic powers and gifts that God put in you to paint and to make beautiful landscapes and to manifest things in your life that you maybe thought you couldn't before. But there's a lot of juice in here. There's a lot of secrets that we share. And yes, there is magic. I believe in magic. I have seen magic, and I make magic in my world personally. So the magic is here, and we're bringing that forth. I think this will probably be a good time for another clip and to show this shift maker in action, huh?
I think that's a great idea, actually. Let me cue it up here.
While he's queuing it up, ladies and gentlemen, Xavier and Rev Kev and I are exceedingly excited and thankful for Ken Walls, who's a invisible, usually behind the scenes magic maestro that makes all this look seamless. And he with the rest of the team on Reverend Ike Legacy. So you know that we've got a big team behind us making this all happen today. We're thankful to each and every one of them. And we're not going to name them by names because what we're here to do is dedicated to you and your soul fulfillment, like the first thing that Xavier said. Take it away, Ken.
I'm gonna go out of order. I'm feeling this one clip. I don't know why. I'm just feeling it. Let's do this. Here we go.
All right. I want to tell you how to use your mind power to get what you want now. I mean, right here in Atlanta, right here in Georgia, right there, wherever you are looking and listening. First of all, you have to use your mind power to believe in yourself. The religious people would say to me, oh yes, Reverend Ike, you're telling people about believing in themselves, but what about believing in God? Well, who do you think God is? God has no personality except in man and as man. And God is not a big man in the sky. God is the real man in me. Let each person say this, because this is the truth of everyone. God is not a big man in the sky. God is the real man in me. We have another way of saying it, and I want to give you this prayer of affirmation to take with you so that you can have what you want now. God is the presence and power within me right now. Together, God is the presence and power within me right now. Another way that we can state it in this philosophy of the science of living is this: God is the mastermind working through me now. God is the mastermind working through me now. Come on, together. God is the mastermind working through me now. Oh, you're getting turned on. Now, people say, well, Reverend Ike, what about believing in God? Please hear this. Your faith is no good until you learn to have faith in yourself. How in the world can you believe in somebody in the sky and you don't even believe in the somebody in you? How in the world can you believe in a Jesus that walked in Galilee and not believe in the God that walks in you? Oh, I think we're getting through. Somebody say, wow. Say it again. I don't care how much faith you may have in a God in the sky. Until you learn to have faith in the God in you, your faith is dead. It's no good to you. God in the sky is no good to you. Only God in you is of any value to you. The most important thing in the world is what you believe about yourself. That's the most important thing. Your entire experience is fabricated out of what you believe about yourself. And mind you, I always have to point this out. It is not important what other people believe about you. It's only important what you believe about yourself.
Fire.
I mean, serious.
Fire.
Wow.
Is the man on fire or what?
Yeah,
I mean,
he
talk
is.
about embodying forces of nature and energy. He had it, and that energy is still flowing through us and with us now. Your faith is your faith in God is no good to you unless and until you believe in yourself, because your belief in the God in you is the activator of your inner power and your inner fire, that fire of the soul that was placed within you before you were born. See, that fire had to be put in there, like a rocket, it lifts off. The fire happens on the ground before it even lifts off. So we had the fire before we came here. That fire moved us onto this earth plane, and it continues to burn. There are some forces that would want to quell and squelch that fire, but we don't let that. We command our own authority and retake our belief in ourselves, retake our own authority and our ability to have joy and create all the good that we want in our lives. And by example and by resonance, remember, where two or more are gathered, there's a powerful resonance where miracles happen. We take that back and we consciously create these fields of great possibility that become probability and then actuality. And we manifest those things. I mean, one of the things that he started off by saying, use your God power to create what you desire in your life. This is your manual for doing that.
I really am.
Go get it. Come on, go get it.
I really am. I love when we bring it up and just,
I know, all of us.
So close.
Yeah.
By the way, let me hitchhike on that, Kev. One time I'm with Zig Ziglar, who is one of the great speakers, who is my teacher, way older than me. But when he came out with his new book, See You at the Top, which first of all, he had a terrible title called How to Make a Boodle with Your Noodle, or something like that, or Biscuits, Pump Handles, and Fleas. But for an hour, he started showing the book like this, and he hammered it to 10,000 people that were in the audience in front of us in Boise, Idaho. And I thought he forgot his book. And then all of a sudden I realized, no, he's doing what we're doing. We are baptizing you, catechizing you, simonizing you to make sure that you understand that this isn't a book. This is a book of books. This is a book that's going to escalate, elevate your life so you have exponential returns. Kev, I'm sorry if I cut you off.
No, but one of the things he talked about, Reverend Ike was very clear, and I think it's so important for us with the bold desires that Xavier's talking about as we move into 2024, is recognizing that you are not other people's opinions. And I think it's so very important as you are assessing and dreaming your boldest dreams, that you do not allow yourself to get straitjacketed by other people's limited ideas projected onto you. And in fact, Reverend Ike knew this so well that he played with controversy in order to draw more attention to this issue that would cause people to awaken to that divine spark within themselves, to look at it even more. And so as you're thinking about whatever it is that you can possibly dream imaginable, and one of the things that Reverend Ike was known for is being materially opulent and abundant and very forthright about that, unapologetic about that. It was because he was rejecting hundreds of years of generational labeling that an entire people, and not just Black people, but people who were categorized to have destinies of impoverishment, he was outlandishly rejecting that notion. But he was not just doing it for himself, he was doing it for everyone, and showing that in such a powerful way. And he was sharing that with so many people. Oh, I got comments coming, waiting on my book. I hope it arrives. We know it's going to arrive. We promise it's going to arrive.
I've been getting notices that books are arriving early and they're being shipped out. They were being shipped out, before yesterday.
And just so you all know, the publisher went back. I'm sorry, Kev, again, but the publisher went back and had to republish it. Now, I'm used to that with Chicken Soup. We had 168 people running 3 shifts. And because we believe, the 3 of us online here talking with me and you all, is it Reverend Ike's on the other side orchestrating this thing, because that's what he'd do, because spirit is alive. It's it's a wave propagation. It's eternal. And he said he wanted to leave a legacy of legacies. And we want this legacy literally to go around the world. And what Kevin was saying is, John 10:10 says, I've come and you might have life and have it more abundantly. Reverend Ike said to you, you just saw the show, I want it now. Because if you get it in the nowness of consciousness, the whole universe has to move, because he had books in his bookstore every week in this great opulent place called United Palace. And one of them was Assigned to Getting Rich, which Wallace Wattles wrote us out of the Depression of 1898. I mean, Henry Ford read it, and he did the car, because he said, wait a second, there's infinite power in me. I can make this thing called a car. Well, simultaneously, the other guy who read it in Germany at the same time was Mercedes-Benz, exactly the same day. So God has no excuse. God doesn't have any excuses. Only you and I do. So if you get in the ascent of consciousness, if you buy the book like all of you are doing it, you're going to get the book. The publisher's printing them. The distributors are distributing them. We want you to have it, and not for us. We want you to have it for you and all the future glory that you're going to do. Because Reverend Ike would say at the end of the sermon, you're supposed to go from glory to glory, success to success, abundance to more abundance. And that's what Kev's saying. And it's a little hard to buy into. When I was poor, broke, dejected, rejected, and a dumbass squared person, I didn't know that I could have abundance.
Well, I don't think too many people would agree with that you were any of those things now, given your
not now. That was 50 years ago, Kev.
Now I don't know what Crystal thinks of you, and we can talk about that offline. But I'm just saying, there's an old song. My mother's the only one who loved me, but she could be jiving too. But I think what the rich ideas that are in this book, the rich ideas that Reverend Ike represents, I believe if we form little groups, little mastermind groups, that will help to strengthen the field around these higher vibrational thoughts that you're going to be picking up from the stories in this book, and use just a mind seed once a month for the next 12 months. Work it together. Find somebody else who's ready to be in a transformative space and to raise the octave of conversation. Life is a conversation. And let me tell you, Reverend Ike was the conversation police. He did not permit us to use our words in any way that could be detrimental to ourselves or to others. He would do this thing called, he would make the sign of the cross and say, cancel, cancel. If he heard us saying something that would somehow be, as he would say, blasphemous. And what he meant by blasphemy, anything that would speak to our nature as less than divine and less than prosperous, irrespective of the facts. And sometimes you have to have a partner, you have to have a buddy, you have to have someone to stand with you in navigating these high-minded conversations, these high-spirited conversations, these high-love conversations. And one of the things that he was famous for, and anybody who knew him knew that he liked to talk about rich ideas. And so I want to encourage those of you who are launching with us on this journey toward more health, happiness, love, success, prosperity, and money for a new year and a newer and greater version of yourself. Find a conversation partner who wants to operate at this higher frequency. Share the book, share the rich ideas from it. And of course, you're already discovering the supplemental videos that that Reverend Ike Legacy has been sharing, and that will help to build your own group wherever you are.
I want to hear what he said, and then I'll let you talk. Here's what happened. Andrew Carnegie, the first richest guy of all times, and Reverend Ike had everybody go to his house at 95th and 5th Avenue, and then I went to his house in Dornoch, Scotland, and I paid $4,000 a night to stay there. Andy studied the Bible assiduously with a third grade education. When he read it, he said, holy cow, Jesus did not do his first miracle, water into wine at Cana, until he had 12 disciples synchronized, like all the nodes in the battery were locked in and worked. If one of them's off, the battery won't start your car or you can't light your flashlight. The point is, he said, if that's true, then I'm going to get 12 people that believe with me. And he got, obviously, Frick, who's got the Frick Museum, and he got Charles Schwab, senior, 2 generations ago, to create the richest company of all time. What we're saying here is this book plus what we're teaching you is a mastermind. A mastermind is a third new mind that is invincible. It's unstoppable. It's creative. And Reverend Ike had not only his son and Mrs. Eikerenkoetter, who's a great friend, but he had Dr. Alfred Miller and he had Gaynor. I can name the names because I was intimate to the metaphorically to the group and just was swept up in it. And this mastermind is that third new mind that makes you so. As a matter of fact, Dr. Miller, the second in command at the church, as a minister, would come to my mastermind meetings every Tuesday morning at 7:30, and I had 12 people because I read that's what you had to do, and it had me beating on my chest. So I'd go out that day. Nobody could say no to buying my seminars or my books that day. Ken, you had something to say. Go ahead.
Well, now I have two things to say. I have so much more,
Hey.
but I'm being respectful. Listen, I want to give props to Yolanda because look what she did. She's like, I didn't want to wait on she got the hardback copy and she's going to be gifting that out, but she also got the Kindle version so she could start reading it right now. And that is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. For me, I love getting the Kindle version, but I love getting the hardback version too, because it's so easy to flip through the pages and just go to a chapter, which is my question. I don't know what chapter number, doesn't even matter. Supernatural miracles and healings, Mark. It looks like you wrote this chapter. I want to hear about, I want to have you expound on this chapter, the supernatural miracles and healings chapter.
Okay, so I want to go way back. Now, Reverend Ike's born in 1935. At 14 years old, he becomes a minister. He starts preaching all over the Carolinas. Every night, he filled the places, and there were little itty bitty churches, probably held 50 to 100 each. People would be streaming in through the windows because he studied, like Xavier said, all the great healers of his time. He'd go way out of his way to study them, buy their books, read them, talk to them, interview them, all the way up and through, as I know he was with Oral Roberts, who was also a great healer later on during my life experience. But the people would come in, and they'd come in as alcoholics and decide to dry out. They'd come in with tuberculosis, and he'd heal them. They'd come in on stretchers, dead almost. And when he moved from church to church, the word went out because he was on radio already. He started on radio, and it went out. And then he went on to TV occasion and became the biggest, most famous guy on TV probably at that time as a black minister, for sure the best, most famous evangelist. But people would come in and not be able, and people that came in and at the church, I was interviewing these 92 to 98-year-olds, and all of them had healings that were all miraculous. One little person, I'm going to have Xavier talk to something that I know is a little caustic, but she had protruding hemorrhoids, and yet she had her drive the car. Xavier, would you pick that up, please? That great story, because you know that family, and they ended up working for the Eikerenkoetters down the line.
So we're here on page 70, right? Supernatural, natural miracles, healings. And there's the principle, first of all, in these healings. I mean, my dad was not as well known as a faith healer, but he was a powerful healer. He would lay hands on people. He would have the congregation or the gathering put their hands towards people and focus healing energy toward them. He would pray for them. They would pray together. And what was happening, and my father is the first to tell you this, is that he wasn't healing the person. He was being a conductor of what I mentioned before, earlier. Energy and force. Forces of the universe, forces of the cosmos that we all have within us. And it is very much the principle where two or more are gathered, there I am in your name. And Kevin was talking earlier about raising our frequency. That's the key to it. All of this is about raising our vibrational resonance. Everything emits a vibrational frequency. Every person, every idea, every concept. And when we buy into certain ideas and concepts, that will affect our vibrational frequency by what's called the law of resonance. Christ demonstrated this because when you walked into the presence of Christ, there was an intention that Christ held. First of all, he could see your divine nature, who you truly are, who you are in God and who God is in you, and call that forth, right? Lazarus, come forth. Wake up from the dead. There is a power and force that calls forth the higher vibrational energy within us, within the very cells of our body, within the very thought cells of the patterns that we carry in our mind. when we enter a field of energy that is high in vibration, we have a choice. We can raise to that higher level. We can be impacted in such a way that we are positively lifted, or we can shut down and block it out. And that will often send us into various crises of healing or health that we experience. But my father was able to see the truth of the person that he was working with and bring the support of everyone that was in the place where they were doing the healing. And in this place of touching and agreeing, the possibility for miracles to precipitate, for that divine energy to collapse into form, wash the sickness away, bring in the healing and the wholeness. To heal means to make whole, to increase wholeness. So the vibration of greater wholeness was able to enter the person because they agreed with it. They were able to let go of the lower vibrational sickness and bring in the health and the healing. And I've seen so many amazing things happen. Mark was just talking about this family, this foster family, if you will. Wonderful Nana who mentored so many beautiful children back in this, going back to the 60s and into the 70s and into the 80s and even the 90s. She would come to church. And at one time she brought one of our wonderful friends, Ava, and her little foster brother, Gary. And they were having physical problems. Ava had the condition that Mark mentioned, and Gary had a hole in his heart as a 2-year-old boy, I believe. And so Dad had them bring Gary Richards, to the front and began the healing. Raised hands toward him, placing hands on the boy, calling forth the health and the perfect state of inner divinity. And remember, the first key, first secret to the success is identifying with the God within. And that God within is whole. It's complete. It's very high resonance, high vibrational. And when you touch that energy, you get that power and force coming into you, through you, and it can move absolutely anything. Whatever the doctors say about negative health conditions and issues can be moved and can be changed and turned on a dime. I've seen it. So that little boy, Gary Richards, had a hole in his heart, went back to his doctor, took an x-ray, the hole in his heart was gone. And so Gary is a contemporary of mine now. Wow. He's in his mid-50s now, I think. And he's lived a healthy life since then. So we have this principle, this idea, God in us. It's not just an idea or a concept. It's a living energy. And it's a living energy that we harness when we bring our consciousness and our belief to bear, right? Be you transformed by the renewing of your mind into believing of who you truly are in God, and God is in you.
I want to hitchhike on what he said just ever so quickly. He said his dad had worked his whole life raising his vibration. He would preach all night, starting at 5 or 6 o'clock, and go to 2 a.m, go home in sweaty clothes, so sweaty that his shoes squished with water, as I wrote in the book. You know, we were taught by Star Cleo, who we invited to be on today, and she may be on later on in the show. I don't know that. Anyhow, the point is, I learned that was called entrainment, because he had a high vibration. Every week, I go there every Sunday. I listen to all of his tapes interimly, read any of the pamphlets, success ideas like Rev Kev talked about. I got it. So I'm doing a lot of talks around the country. Like when I was single, I was doing 250 a year, and I'm in Washington, D.C. one night, fly all night to get to the biggest church in Denver at the time, Dr. Fred Vogt's church. And I arrived there right before the service, and Fred had me in a few times in this mega church with over 5,000 people the day before he'd married my hero friend as a singer, John Denver. And I just was beyond. I get there and I'm a little red eye, bloodshot, and there's a little lady standing next to Fred outside the church that's got what we call scoliosis, bent spine, and her parents are standing behind her. And I can see she's about 14 years old and frail and not looking like she's going to make it. And I said, great to be with you, Dr. Fred. Who is this? He said, this is Amy Graham. And she went to Make-A-Wish. her dying wish is to see you speak once before she dies. And I thought, oh my God, everybody wants to see Mr. T or Sylvester Stallone or Arnold or something, or go to Disneyland. That's their make-a-wish. But to hear a professional speaker was a little bit beyond my belief system. Anyhow, I'm talking during a church service, and I don't know what took me, but it was like Reverend Ike, when you get swept up in this vibration, which we hoping you get swept up in, and then read the book and go even escalating the higher. I said to the audience, look, we have a lady here that the doctors have pronounced the end of her life in a day or two. And I just don't want to buy into that. So I've learned from my friend Reverend Ike that you can rub up your hands, get the healing energy. If you, everyone, 5,000 people, you roll up your hands, rub it up. And Amy, would you come up here? And she's standing in front of me, and I'll hold behind, and all of you send energy, because all of you got the energy, but 5% of you probably got it turned on. That's enough out of that audience, right? Just send the energy up here, and we will heal her instantly. And she not only got healed, but I've talked to her since then. She's got 3 kids. She's happily married. She's an older person now. The point is, what Reverend Ike did, you and I can do. That's the critical thing. Reverend Ike isn't a one-off. I got to have you understand, all of you got this infinite ability that you're here metaphorically to turn on. And that's what the 4 of us are trying to share with you, and hold up a mirror so you can look at it and say, wait, if they're telling the truth, I got infinite potential. I put a lid on it here. And Reverend Ike would break the lid and say, well, look, I'm going to keep raising my lid. I'm going to work on myself. Because the law of life is a law of growth. And I've got to keep growing with intentionality to find out what I can be and become, what I can do, and what I can have. Because you can have it all, like Kevin was saying. I mean, the guy had 16 Rolls Royces, many mansions. And every one of us, and the wardrobe that just wouldn't quit. I loved his sartorial splendor, which I got to say, Kev wrote about so well in his glamorous bling. You want to hit on that, Kev?
I want to touch on something that what you all were speaking about earlier, which is Gary Richardson.
Yep.
I saw him last evening. Okay. We were together last night.
Wow.
At Bishop Carlton Pearson's Celebration of Life service in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm just getting into Boston this morning from Atlanta last night. And another powerful, iconic mentee and protege who was inspired by the work of Reverend Ike, Carlton Pearson, just recently made his transition. And there were thousands present in what was undoubtedly the 7th of a series of celebrations of life over a 30-day period. So you're talking about what one person can spark in the life of another person. And so I'm certain that Reverend Ike's influence and spark Carlton Pearson, and he had a huge ripple effect, throughout the world. Well, I haven't seen Gary in years. And so Gary is coming up now, I guess, for a reason. The last thing he said to me is, we gotta stay in touch. We gotta tap in. Let's stay connected. And so we took this selfie and we promised to stay connected. And so guess who now is in our field to really concentrate on today. So guess who's getting a phone call after this session here for sure. So thanks for bringing his story into this again. And that was a thing that Reverend Ike was sharing with us.
Oh, that's Kev. That is wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Let me just say about Gary. You're going to love to read his story in the book. It's an absolutely touching story. I just touched on it, but there's more depth in the book about his story. And go ahead, Kevin, please.
No, well, what I'm just kind of tagging off of that's already been said, but maybe say it a little differently. What Reverend Ike was trying to show us with his influence is that he was not the great exception, but the great example. And he would give you little starter tips. He says, if you don't seem to have certain things, don't give it away to the world that you don't have it. Go into life looking good, feeling good, smelling good, and acting good. And if you don't have something, someone will give you something, whether it be something material or a right idea. Today, honest to God, this is a confession. I got off the plane feeling a little bit weary, and a little bit down because I need to reach out to a friend that I want to do some healing work with. And as I'm walking off of the plane, going into the going to get my car to come here, getting the car to come here, I decided that I'm going to exude joy today, and I'm just going to have a smile on my face. And as I am walking, a young lady walks up to me who is going into the airport. As I'm coming out of the airport, I was wearing my Harvard Divinity School hat, and she said to me, are you a student at Harvard? I said, no, I'm not. I just graduated. She says, well, I'm a student at Harvard Divinity School right now. I think I know you. Are you Rev Kev? And we've kind of connected. She says, well, I just want to say that I've been inspired by you in some of your some of the times that you spoke to the student body at Harvard. And I just want to let you know that I'm going to be there for the next couple of years. You're going to be around? I said, yeah, I'm doing some campus ministry work out at Harvard, and I would love to connect. So she gave me this, she introduced herself to me with this uplifting energy. And I think we have that capacity to be not exceptions, but examples. And as we are examples of what we want to experience in our lives, we attract it into our field. And so I got, after all that, a confirmation that I was on the right track by putting that good energy out there. It came back to me. So I'm feeling great. I was ready for today's Zoom, and up and at 'em with all of you.
Oh, my brother, we appreciate you bringing your positive energy, your consciousness, your love for my dad, but also exemplifying what he taught you. And, you sat at his feet, you traveled with him, you learned from him. And also going back to Bishop Carlton Pearson, our great friend, I wonder how many people know that, when Bishop Carlton Pearson was basically excommunicated from his denomination of, unfortunately, very narrow-minded people. My dad wrote in Gospel Today several times on his behalf, supporting him.
Christianity Today.
Say it again?
Christianity Today.
Oh, yes, Christianity Today. Mm-hmm. Writing in support of Bishop Pearson, and just trying to help people understand more of what this awakening into New Thought is about. Now, New Thought, to me, that's just a term to me. I grew up with this. So I heard New Thought for the first time, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. I'm like, what is New Thought?
Yeah, it's our first language, right?
Yeah, you're languaging something that just is a way of thinking. But New Thought, ancient wisdom, as Reverend Michael and a lot of people say, it's been around since the beginning. But Carlton Pearson had a really good relationship with my father. And I appreciated so much Carlton's journey and his stepping away from the tremendous influence of that huge denomination. It does mirror my father's own experience. And we get into that in the book also, about how my dad, surmounted those odds of being kicked out for things like, he would take the kids out. And some of this specifically is not in the book, the overall is. So I'm sharing some things that are not disclosed directly, but he would take kids to play baseball after church on Sundays. He got flack for that. He gave credence and credit to other religions and thought systems such as Buddhism, Islam, etc. in his PhD dissertation. That got him in trouble. He identified with God truly as a father the way Jesus Christ did. That got him into problems with some of the more strict and narrow-minded denominations. So he was kicked out of the church and started his own thing because he just couldn't exist within the narrowness of the box that they were trying to keep him in. And that is part of his and Carlton Pearson's lesson to us is don't stay confined in mental, emotional, doctrinal, religious, whatever kind of boxes, familial boxes even that your family wants to put you in. Don't get stuck in those places. You have to have the courage to break out. So one of the powers and keys to my father's success was his courage in breaking out. You said my dad, Kevin, was a shift maker. The first shift he made was in himself and in his own life. And that shift has helped thousands upon thousands of people to transcend their circumstances into something greater. That's what this book is about. And that's what we're sharing with the world here today on this launch. So thank you, Kevin. And thank you, everyone who's chiming in. I'm seeing India Cook, Anthony Cook, BJ Van Etten. I'm seeing people from the UK, Joy Roselle. Thank you all. We feel the love and we so appreciate this. We're going to continue with this. This is just the launch, right? The rocket's taking off, but it's going to the stratosphere and it's going beyond. So we're going to continue with live streams, book clubs, you name it. We're going to be doing it.
Let me hitchhike on what my friend just said, Xavier, and that is Reverend Ike shifted me, and now I've had over 500 million books sold, but in India, the pass along value is 15 people read one book. In China, where I've been 80 times back when it was capitalistically communistic, not Maoistically communistic. And there, we sold 374 million books. And it does go out. There is a Doppler effect. And it does come back. All of what Rev Kev was saying, Crystal and I were in Nashville recently, and the guy made little napkins for us that were so cool. It says, karma never loses an address. So when Rev Kev said, I'm going to come into joy, and we said, that's the instantaneity of consciousness, all of a sudden another Harvard student comes up to him, and she expressed the joy of his great sermons, and they are great. Each of us is here to make that shift. You are not watching us, as far as I'm concerned, by accident. This is by divine appointment. And you are here to do profound, wonderful, exciting, creative things, because the first thing in the Bible, with Genesis 1:28, says you're made in the image and likeness of God. That means you got three C's. You're here to create, you're here to contribute, and you're here to be charitable. And Reverend Ike was the maestro of people learning to give. And he says, giving is the grantor. You've got to give before you can receive. And he do it so simply, like Kev said, you can't miss it. You got to give a breath before you can take a breath. Well, I'm going to take in all the air that exists. No, try that. And you're going to pass out. You're going to turn red and pass out. You can't do it. I can hear that Ken is bursting to say something like, let's go watch a video or something.
No, I'm actually sending a message to Xavier right now. There, I just sent you a text message. So we do have somebody, and here's my dear friend. This woman, Patricia, I just have to say, like, she is an internationally famous artist. Her artwork hangs in the Louvre and in the Vatican, and she is a dear friend of mine, and she's amazing, and she's watching and definitely in agreement with all of us. So but we have a special guest waiting in the green room backstage. So this is phenomenal. Somebody just said something.
I just said hi, Janice, and hi, Patricia. Waving
hello. I thought maybe
people popping in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Patricia. Everyone, we so appreciate
being on our special guest, Ken.
Bishop Jack Bomar. All right. So the story continues to get more and more interesting here. So
the plot thickens.
Yes. Bishop Jack Bomar is a wonderful New Thought minister. He is someone who I actually appointed as pastor at the United Palace, back in 2011-ish. And he did such a wonderful job there. I asked him to go to the South Carolina Church, United Church in Beaufort, South Carolina, which is the first and only brick and mortar church that my father built, even though he had many followings and, congregations around the country and listeners around the world. The church in Beaufort is the first and only brick and mortar church that he built back in 1962, I believe. So for 70 years, and we just had a wonderful groundbreaking there for the Rev Ike Resource Center, which our plan is to have it open in a year's time. So much of a story to tell there, but Jack revitalized that church along with many of the longtime members, some who were there at the founding and even before that church was founded, like Mother Cleo, who is also in the book, and Sister Mary Ward, who is also in the book. You're going to hear some of these stories from these amazing, I want to say old timers, and I say that as, an honorific, but our elders who have been with us for decades and decades and have supported my dad in the ministry. Jack is doing just an incredible job. And now he has an international gathering, Hillside United coalition of churches that includes Beaufort. There are churches in South Africa, Hawaii, Memphis, Tennessee, and all over the place. And he is just an absolutely wonderful man. So I want to bring him on to talk about his experience with my dad, even though he never physically met my dad. He knows him very well.
Wow.
Bishop Jack, are you there?
Here he is, Bishop Jack.
I am here. Blessings, everyone. Xavier, it's such a joy to be here. Mark, so good to see you. Rev Kev,
Hey,
and
Bishop.
Ken, thank you so much for the honor of sharing. Can you hear me okay?
We hear you
Can you
just
hear me?
fine. It's so good to have you with us.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure. I have such love for you, Xavier, the family, your mother, Annette, and for just the move. And it truly is a movement that we know as the consciousness of Reverend Ike. I think it's bigger than any particular entity or organization. It's a movement. And I'm so honored. I actually met you in 2010, Xavier, and actually it's by way of our dear friend and brother, Bishop Carlton Pearson. I was serving as Bishop Pearson's volunteer executive assistant in Chicago. And I don't know if I talk about this in the book, but I was having like these moments in prayer and meditation where I just felt strongly that I was supposed to connect with Reverend Ike's family. I didn't know you. I never met him. I admired him, admired his teachings for so long. I grew up listening to Reverend Ike as a child. My mother used to send donations and support to the ministry, but I grew up listening to him. Always wanted to meet him. I never got to meet him in person. However, in working with Bishop Pearson, I met you and the family, and I can't tell you how it went down, but we're still together. This is now 13 years later, and I'm honored.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're honored to have you.
I don't see you. Can you see me?
We see you. Can you still hear us, Jack? Can you hear me? I'm not sure.
I can. Yes.
Okay, good.
There.
Good. Yes. Well, we're honored to have you with us and to have you as a part of our family and the legacy of Reverend Ike. And do you want to share how you have met my dad in the invisible and how he, in a sense, started talking to you and working with you when you started with the church?
Absolutely. Interestingly enough, it was around the time, 2 weeks before your father transitioned, Xavier, I was serving the Unity Church in Memphis, Tennessee. And I don't know how I just came across the science of living. But for 2-3 weeks straight, I was just teaching and preaching his material at the Unity Church. And people would come up, that sounds like Reverend Ike. I'm like, it is Reverend Ike's teachings. These are his teachings. And then I would later find out that he transitioned. Before we had our first meeting, I remember we had the conversation. We met in New York, and you wanted to discuss the possibility of my commuting between Chicago and coming into New York to work with the United Palace. Before that first meeting, I dreamt of your father that night before. First time ever. I've never met him. And in the dream, it was very significant. That was the first visit for me with your father. And after that, and after committing to doing my part in serving his legacy and serving the ministry and working with the members of United Palace, I had so many other dreams. So although I've never met him in person, he has visited me countless times. If I pull up my recorder in my phone, I usually record every morning. I wake up and remember the dreams, or whenever I record the message in my phone. I have so many recordings of visits by Reverend Ike. And he would often come, especially, I don't have to tell you what it was like serving in New York and all of that extraordinary ministry and the significance of that ministry in the heart of the city. And there were a lot of difficult decisions and, tough decisions that were required. And I'm still new. I've never lived in New York, didn't really know. I'm still learning the ministry. And he would often appear to me in dreams and guide me and direct me. And I listened. I remember this one time he appeared, and I talk about it in the book. And this wasn't necessarily a dream, I don't know how to explain it. I was downstairs at the lower level in the laundry room. And when I turned around,
this is the house I grew up in.
In Rye.
Yes.
In Rye. When I turned around, your father was in the doorway. And he was laughing so loud and so big. It was such a loud and big laugh. And then he just broke off in song. And I come to the garden, and I talk about it. And then I joined in that chorus, the words that I knew, and then he vanished. So for me, that's been my experience. Although I never met him in the physical, one of the messages that he gave me several years ago, he said, if you take me with you wherever you go, I will bless you and bless the space where you are. And that's why I have carried his teachings, whether it was in Hawaii or Australia or St. Croix or here in Atlanta. The blessings continue to pour and to flow. So I can't say thank you enough for your willingness to just be so open and receptive to inviting me in to be a part of your family and this extraordinary legacy and movement.
Wow, Jack, that is profound. And there are other stories you've shared with me that show me. And, my father is, and I think Kev may have been the first one to articulate this in such a way that it dropped in to my consciousness that my father is my closest ancestor. He is in that realm of ancestry. And as we know, the ancestors are there at our beck and call. They are a host of consciousness, because we know that soul spirit never dies. Spirit goes through a journey of many lifetimes, but soul is continuous and immortal. And my father, as my closest ancestor, so you're talking about a time, he passed in 2009. So you're talking about either just before he passed or right after he passed, he began to appear to you. And it sounds to me, prepping, as he said, I'm going to continue to minister from the other side. And as he's looking, it's like, oh, here's a wonderful spirit soul who is simpatico with the vibration. And that's the thing. It's vibrational resonance. And there's a word that's coming to me that speaks to that. But prepping you, to be able to carry part of the mantle. And so my father also visits me still in dreams. I remember one of the first profound visitations I had after he passed is he came into the threshold of my doorway. Did you say he was in the doorway when he visited you? Or you said something like that. He was standing
It's in
somewhere.
the doorway.
Well, there you go. He was standing at the
Yes,
threshold
there
of
was
the
a
bedroom, between the outside patio and the bedroom. He had his Kangol hat on. He had these Bermuda shorts, a Hawaiian shirt, and he just began talking to me and saying soothing words to me in a way. It was like, I'm with you, son. Carry on. You're doing just fine. Everything's going to be okay. And he continues to visit me regularly in dreams. So I just want people to know this. This is a book of ancestry. This is the book of, this contains the ancestral mojo of a man named Reverend Ike, Frederick J. Eikerenkoetter, who happened to be my father, who carried a healing essence into the world, an awakening essence, a healing essence, and a presence, and a message for the world that is going to continue to resonate and vibrate throughout all time. And those of you who are simpatico with this vibrational essence, you can receive it, and it will be a blessing to your heart, blessing to your soul, and blessing to your spirit.
Absolutely. Xavier, I received my coffee yesterday. I'm so excited about it.
Wonderful.
Looking forward to inviting the congregations and those who are part of the Hillside United Network as we explore this together. It's so exciting.
Hey, Xavier, you think it's time to fire up another video?
Yes, let's have another look.
Let's play this one. Here we go.
Do you know I almost never get a chance to ask for anything anymore? Because here again, when you learn how to believe correctly about yourself and to know what you are entitled to as a child of God, it just comes to you automatically. And so I'm always going around saying these words, look what came out of the presence of God in me. Thank you, Father. My blessings don't come from the sky. My blessings come out of the presence of God in me. That's another thing, you see, you have to learn about your blessings, about the answers to prayer, about the answers to your good desires. The answers to your good desires do not come from outside of you. The fulfillment, the help, the blessing that you need come to you from out of the presence of God in you. Your good may appear to come from someone else or from that job, from your friends and loved ones, but these blessings really come out of the presence of God in you. This is what happened when Jesus, the mastermind, multiplied the loaves and the fishes. Now, the scriptures tell us that he fed several thousand people from just a few fish and a little bread. Where did the bread and the fish come from to feed all of those people? Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Thank you, Father." He never said, "Father, give me." He never said, "Gimme." He said, "Thank you," and passed out the fish and the bread and fed thousands. Where did that fish and bread come from? Out of the presence of God in Jesus. And this is where your good comes from. It flows out of the presence of God in you. And when you learn how to pray like this correctly, and when you learn your correct relationship with God, this will be your new prayer. Thank you, Father. Look what came out of the presence of God in me. Let's practice, and here again, as I close this message, let's practice the correct manner for receiving the answer. Because you see, when you pray, you should receive the answer at the same time. And in order to receive the answer, you have to practice your reaction to the answer. When you pray, be sure that you practice the reaction to the answer at the same time. When you pray within yourself, start feeling like you'd feel when the answer happens. Start acting like you would act when the answer happens. Now, this is the way I act. I say, look what came out of the presence of God in me. Thank you, Father. Come on, let's practice this. Look what came out of the presence of God in me. Thank you, Father. And when you make that mental transaction of asking for the good that you desire and say, thank you, Father, you seal the deal. If there was a God in the sky, he couldn't back out. God bless you. Now you know how to answer your own prayer. You may be seated.
Look what came out of the presence of God in me. Thank you, Father.
Yes.
It works so well because
Seals the deal. I love it.
Yes.
That message taught a lot, because what happens is the people came into the church, a lot of them penniless, emotionally distraught. And what happened is he said, look, there's no shortage once you're thankful for what you have. But it goes along with what Christ said, pray as though the thing for which you're praying has been received. You got to have it before you get it, which he said to most people that sounds like gobbledygooks. But once you're thankful in advance, the good of God pours out in and through you, and there's no limit, because if God's infinite and you're made infinite stuff, then there's infinite available to you, but you got to do some doing. And one of it is, look, he took a little fish and bread, fed 5,000, and then had so much, and there were probably 15,000 people there because they only counted men in the prehistoric days, 2,000 years ago, so to speak. And he had 12 baskets left over. So, God is a God of surplus. God is a God of abundance. And if you've got God in you, then you've got a God of abundance and surplus and health and happiness, joy, and unlimited money also. It's not just for him. And I want you to, hopefully you notice his, I call it sartorial splendor, his extraordinary wardrobes and jewelry and extravagance. And he was just a joy to be with, because what Xavier said is he raised his vibration so he could help you raise yours. And that's what the book does. The book takes you on this profound, exciting, and unlimited journey into the discovery of the soul journey in you.
I gotta say, he said something incredibly profound. He said Jesus did, and I don't remember exactly how he said it, so forgive me if I get it wrong. But he said Jesus didn't beg and plead; he just said thank you, as if it already has happened. Thank you.
Yes.
So profound.
Very.
People need to wrap their brains around that. That's profound.
Exactly. You see, it's claiming what is in that divine level. Faith is what? Substance of what's not seen. But the fact that it's not seen doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It does exist. It's in those unseen realms. So what you're doing with your faith, thank you, Father, gratitude, you're attaching your magnet to that and you're drawing it in. And I've had an experience, and my dad tells a story, even at this level, of valet was bringing his car out to him. And he pulled out, he thought he was pulling out a $10 bill to give him a tip. It was a $50 bill. So he handed it to the guy, and the guy's eyes got big. He said, "Oh, thank you, sir." And my dad couldn't take it back. That $50 bill gravitated right out of his hand into that valet. And I've had the experience with this book. There have only been a few, up to this point, a few advanced copies, right? So I've been showing it to people. And so one by one, pre-copies, I've been showing the people, and their eyes get big, and they're, "Oh, thank you. Is this for me?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is. Please enjoy." See, you get into that state of claiming it, and in a place of joy and knowing and the wonder of, wow, look at this. Look at this. Is that here? This opportunity, this presence. this abundance, this grace, this gifting, and you receive it. There's nothing that can keep it from you. What do you say about that, Jack, in your experience?
Bishop?
There's
I
a
can't-
there's
I
a
can't-
delay. There's a
Okay.
delay
so
on
powerful.
his internet.
What do you think about that, Jack?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to chime in. That was one of the greatest gifts. So many powerful tenets to Reverend Ike's teachings, and probably one of the most profound message was to give God an address, to take this presence and power out of the sky and localize this presence within each individual. And that gratitude, as you mentioned, I love it. When you pray, you should receive the answer at the same time. And connecting that conscious thought and feeling with what we have already decreed and declared through gratitude, it connects our cosmic connectors, the heart and the mind, that links us with this divine energy that brings forth the good anytime, every time, anywhere, everywhere. Because in this consciousness, as he says, the only thing that can become anything and do anything and be anything and manifest anything and out of which everything can come forth is consciousness. And as he taught, getting the consciousness of our oneness with the divine, known by many names, doesn't matter what name we give it, him or her, God, Allah, Jehovah, whatever the name is. But out of this one consciousness, everything else shall spring forth. As the master teacher, Reverend Ike taught us, as Jesus says, if you seek ye first the kingdom, the consciousness of our oneness with the divine, all of the riches and the joy and the good and everything else will flow forth. So I'm just so grateful. I get excited every time I hear his voice, every time I hear the message. And I learn something new every time. I can read the book, Science of Living Study Guide, and I teach it. I did 52 weeks of it, 2-3 years. And every time I go back over it, it's some new understanding. And it should be that way because we are new every day. We're in a new awareness of who and what we are and
Bishop,
how we're showing up.
when
I get excited when you start talking teachings.
Good. Bishop, when I interviewed you for the book, one of the things is you started teaching it back at Unity of Hawaii. And at the time, the roof was leaking. It needed $200,000. Everyone was telling you, Bishop Jack, I'm sorry, but you want $200,000. That isn't going to happen. You started teaching abundance, and what happened?
Oh, let me tell you, Mark, I've been teaching everywhere. In Hawaii, let me tell you what happened that morning. We needed these funds to do a renovation. Now, the congregation, we had 3 services that Sunday. We had the town hall meeting that afternoon. And I walked in before I left the house that morning. As I was walking out the door, I heard this voice say, the money is in that house, get it. And so when I walked into that town hall meeting, probably 10% of the congregation attended the town hall. And I told them the amount that we needed. And I did what Reverend Ike taught, give thanks in advance, because we should receive as we pray. And I began to give thanks and all the money we needed and some. And it just didn't stop there in Hawaii. We did the same thing here in Atlanta. And that's how we paid off this mortgage and cleared all the debt. Same thing in Beaufort. I did the restoration. It works if we work it and dare to work it.
Amen.
So over the years, there have been millions, Mark, Xavier, between the ministries, millions that have come through, and this is no exaggeration. Millions have come forth and come through.
That's what thankfulness does. I wrote a whole little book called The Miracle of Tithing, which businessmen look at and say, what's the miracle of tithing? And I said, you haven't been tithed enough lately. And I said, you can tithe your thinking, your time, your talent, your treasures. But in first, the 5 T's, you've got to be thankful in advance. And that's exactly what Reverend Ike just taught. And I never heard that you got to be glued to the result at the same time, which is what he learned, I think, from Neville. And Neville says, live in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, right? And this book is a fulfillment of his wish. It's a fulfillment of Ms. Eikerenkoetter, Xavier, and my wife's wish to make not only a magnificent biography, but a biography of biographies, a biography that'll wake up the soul of every person who touches it. If you touch this book, you're going to start reading it. If you start reading it, you're going to absorb it. You're going to apprehend it. Then you're going to comprehend it. Then you're going to use it. And then you're going to go back and you're going to go give away 10 or 20 copies, because you don't want to be rich alone. You want to have a bunch of rich friends that are healthy, happy, joyous, successful, prosperous, loving, loved, and beloved. And that's what we're doing. We're taking you to the next iteration, the next elevation, the next shift, as Revcad said a few minutes ago. Back to you, Ken. Oh, or do you have something you want to read?
I just want, you bring up my mom, Mark, and I don't want to end this live stream without mentioning my mom. I know we're going to conclude this at a certain point so we can go over to Amazon Live, but chapter that starts on page 108, Reverend Ike proposes to the future Mrs. Ike. One of the great stories in this book, and I hope my mom is watching. Are you there, Mom?
She is.
One of the things I love about this book is there's also a love story in here. And you're going to hear my mother talk about my dad. How many times or places have you ever heard this? Those of you who know my mom or have seen her, you know she's a very quiet person. And I just, every time I read their story, I just well up. You're going to read about the romance. You're going to read about how they meet. In fact, in the back of the book, we have some amazing pictures. You have to get the book to see them. I'm sorry. We have a picture of the very day that my mother and father met. Is that amazing? She played organ in a church that he came to speak to in Boston, Massachusetts. That story's in the book. And you'll hear about their courtship and their marriage. And it's a wonderful love story. So I want to take a moment here to honor my mother.
Please.
Eula May Eikerenkoetter, Mrs. Ike. As I said at our groundbreaking for the Reverend Ike Resource Center just a couple of weeks in Beaufort, on that holy ground, that sacred ground, the first church, brick and mortar church that my father built from the ground up. When you look at my mom, you are seeing 50% of Reverend Ike's success. She not only stood behind her man, she stood beside him, with him, and even went before him, because she handled the business that allowed him to spring forward and to jump off into the world and deploy his amazing talents, which, by the way, is the third key that I've distilled. That is my father's success. The third key is deploying those talents that flow first from the God within us, identifying with that power. And then secondly, the powers that flow from that God source within. And thirdly, the talents, gifts, strengths, abilities that flow from those powers that we have a personal cellular mandate to deploy in the world and to bless, to give and gift to the world by dint of our existence. Each of us as a human soul, we made a commitment. We made a promise. I am going to come into this world and I am going to give forth the bounty that God has placed and packed within me. One of the deals I believe that my mom made is I'm going to hook up with this extraordinary man, and together we are going to bring our extraordinary gifts into the world and change the planet for the better. And through Reverend Ike Legacy and through the book, my mom is one of the, I would say, unsung contributors and authors, co-wife and Mark's wife. But my mother, her story is just amazing. And when you see Reverend Ike and his success, know that there is a powerful woman right beside him. So, Mom, we love you and we bless you.
By the way, just so you all know, Mrs. Eikerenkoetter has been my friend for 50 years. And She calls Crystal and I family, so that makes him literally a brother, which is such a joy, because here's a woman that comes out of Virginia Beach area. I don't know exactly what city it was, ends up getting a master's degree in Braille and helping out all the blind people. And she was playing the organ and the piano, and Reverend Ike was smitten. I don't want to wreck all the story about it, because it's really a heart-touching, soul-penetrating story, and you will love it. Like he said, it's a love story, and she is a wonderful teacher, wonderful business person, but she had to keep all the records, because once in a while the IRS would come a-calling, because here's a big flamboyant minister that's bigger than life, showing up on Oprah show, showing up on Merv Griffin, showing up, and you need to watch all those videos. And I was there when all that was happening, and it was so exciting to have literally the who's who of the world showing up. But she was behind the scenes, quietly effective, delivering the goods on a full-time basis, and absolutely loving her and adoring her husband and Xavier, the son, and making the church not a little thing, but a giant evangelistic ministry, which he'd always called himself an evangelist, not a minister. An evangelist is always on an itinerary, and she was okay with him understanding that they were lovingly married, but he was here to serve the world, because he didn't own him. God owned him, and he had not one talent. He had miraculous oratorical skills that could raise your heights. He had singing skills that could raise your heights. He had orchestration that he could design stories that would go. And in the front end, before he could buy United Palace, he was, preaching and had people lined up around the Sunset Theater for miles, and they all wanted to talk to him personally. And pretty soon he had a cease and desist, because he got them all results, and he could turn them around because he lived in a higher vibration. He wants everyone to go to the height and depth and top of their vibration, to go out of the limited 3D dimensional self, height, width, and breadth, and go into the spiritual depth of yourself, whatever dimension that is for you.
Amen to that.
Wow. Hey, I think we should. We still have a couple of videos. I really think we should play
Please.
them. What do you think?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
And then we can talk to him.
Yeah. Here we go. I'm going to play I Want My Pie Now. What's that all about? I can't wait to watch this one. Here we go.
I want to talk to you from the subject, how to get what you want out of life now. Most of you religious people, all of your lives, you have heard about pie in the sky by and by when you die. Some of you are already half dead and haven't even had a half slice of pie yet. That's why I want to tell you how to get what you want out of life now. How many of you are interested in experiencing the goodness of life now? How many of you would like to have good health now? If so, when I ask you, raise your hands and shout yes. How many of you would like to have joy and happiness now? How many of you would like to have the experience of love, giving and receiving love now? We're even going to change our answer. If your answer is yes on the next few questions, just raise your hands and shout right now. How many of you would like to have success and prosperity right now? How many of you would like to have all of the goodness of life? All right, here's the way it's done. If you want to experience the goodness of life, you must believe in the nowness of life. You must get rid of that pie in the sky by and by when you die attitude. You must get rid even of that someday attitude. I've been hearing people sing that song, I'll be all right someday. But that's not good enough, because when is someday? Now, I've never heard of someday. I've heard of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but never someday. There is no such day as someday. And as long as you believe you're going to be all right, you're going to prosper, you're going to succeed someday, that's exactly when you'll succeed. Someday. So you must get rid of that pie in the sky by and by attitude. You must get rid of that I'll be all right someday. And you must become such as I am. You must let your affirmation be, I want my pie now with ice cream on top.
Come on.
we got 5 minutes left with Jack. I want to go right back to Jack Bomar. What do you think, Jack?
Listen, I love it. I mean, in the nowness of consciousness, he says, get out of the tomorrow or next week, next year, get out of the perusia and get into the nowness of consciousness, and know that as we get definite with the infinite God, the infinite good, and the nowness of consciousness, it gets definite with us. So you don't have to wait in the distant by and by for your pie in the sky. You can have your, what a liberating thought, a liberating message, that you can have it now. And that freed a lot of people. It's still freeing a lot of people. And I think I'm so grateful. It's freed me that we can experience all the good that our soul can fathom or conjure up or desire in the nowness of consciousness. For God, the divine, is I am, which suggests that I'm in this now moment. And it helps us to, to practice what we call mindfulness, to be present in the here and in the now. And that's so liberating. And for so long, for so long, Xavier, Mark, and Ken, especially certain cultures within our community, we were taught that you had to struggle and labor and suffer in this life, and you can expect for things to be better in the afterlife. And your father came, he changed all of that. No, you can experience the good that your soul desires in the here and in the now. And I loved it. I think there was one message. He says, I don't trust that God who comes and goes. I want it now, and we can experience it now. So that's liberating.
What happened, though, yes, to everything the bishop said and everything Reverend Ike said, but what you saw him was at Madison Square Garden, and I was there at that time, and yes, he was in a flamboyant suit, and yes, he had 10,000 plus people, and yes, he had Muhammad Ali presenting and everybody else doing great stuff and superb singing. But what you don't know is behind the scenes, they were whispering, and he was sharing it on the Sundays before. They're telling me I can't do it. I'm not big enough. I'm not famous enough. Only rock stars can fill 10,000 people. Nobody else can fill 10,000 people. You're just a little evangelistic minister, and you'll never pull this off. Well, not only did he do it, but he did it again and again and again. And what you need to know is that he made it so believable, so understandable. Nobody can go out of there and say, well, I'm going to get rich someday. I'm going to get me a Cadillac someday. I'm going to get me a new home someday. I'm going to be happily have a wallet full of money someday. No, it is in a sweet now and now, because today is the day of the Lord, he would teach. and I shall rejoice and be glad. And like the psalmist David said in the Psalms. So I'll give it right back to you, Xavier. I mean, you were there. I mean, I expect you were at Madison Square Garden just like I was.
I was, I would have been all of 6 years old.
Yeah, little kid.
And I remember sitting in so many of those meetings right there, you know, in the front while Dad was doing his thing. And it was just absolutely amazing experience. But we just have about 5 more minutes with Jack Bomar, Bishop Jack. And I wanted to ask you, Jack, you know, in the clip we showed before this, we saw Dad standing at the United Palace on that wonderful opulent stage talking. Can you share with us, what was it like to stand there and preach in my dad's footsteps, so to speak?
Wow. At first, it was so intimidating. It was huge. It was Xavier, as I reflect on it, I'm like, it was truly a once in a lifetime experience to be on that stage where he preached for so many years. As I remember hearing in one of his sermons, he had the longest running show on Broadway, there at Broadway and at 175th. It was so humbling to be there, and you could still feel the prayers. You could feel the anticipation in the atmosphere. I remember when I first visited United Palace, or arrived, and all of the walking sticks and crutches and things used to hang on the wall over by the miracle section or the healing section, where people would come in. And you know, the other part of this, he wasn't just talking about the tangible things of life, money and the material things. He was talking about healing and also wholeness and love and peace of mind and all of these things that are so necessary to live in this experience, to have this experience. So to stand there at that space and place, United on that stage, and it was majestic. And I remember one day I walked out, as I was walking out onto the stage, and the curtains, remember the red curtains and the gold curtains? I was reminded of this dream that I used to have as a child all the time, of being on the stage and seeing all of these lights. And it was truly magical. It was magical. It was a dream. I didn't know it. It was a dream fulfilled. Yet it was very humbling. I feel that I grew tremendously, and I'm still growing, by being there in that consciousness, being on that stage. And as I look at some of these videos and some of these photos, and I'm just enjoying these photos in the book. And so everyone, you got to please get this copy, get your book. There's this connection. It's more than just seeing that. I feel that I'm connected because I've walked that path now, and it's so profound for me. Mark, you said something. I think Xavier, you or Mark mentioned encouraging people to get the book. I feel that there is a divine transference. Something gets transferred, not just reading the book. Yes, that's great. I think just feeling the consciousness and touching the hem of the consciousness of what's here I believe that it will be a point of contact for many that will release whatever the soul is longing for and looking for. There's a scripture that says when the lady touched the hem of Jesus' garment, she got what she was looking for. I believe just touching this book, that there is a divine transfer of power, of mana, of energy, of healing, of blessings, but the soul that is open to receiving and experiencing. If you don't get it, listen, I encourage you, give it as a gift. Give it as a gift, and let the consciousness that's here and the vibration that's here raise the frequency of every soul, wherever you are, that will help us to enter the field that it is already done. And the nowness of consciousness is here. He's given it to us. He's still teaching and preaching from the other side. And thank you, Xavier. Thank you, Mark, for being the vessels and the channels to help bring this forth, and every soul that has contributed to this experience today. Ken, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of this. I'm so very grateful. I remember talking to my mother one day who transitioned in January. And I have to tell you this, Mark, I have 8 siblings, and everybody knew that whenever my mother put that envelope in the mailbox to Reverend Ike's ministry and raised that little person to take the mail, my older siblings would go and get the money. Everybody knew she had some money in it. They would go and get the money out of that envelope. So, but I would often tell her, who would have thought? Who would ever thought that I would be in this seat with this connection today to his legacy? So, after listening to him for so long as a child. Thank you. Thank you.
And Jack, there are so many great stories to tell, including the groundbreaking and baptism we just had together in Beaufort. Oh my God, you talk about ancestral down home. We're going to tell that story. I'm committing to continuing podcasts and shows like this, and we'll get together and talk about those things specifically, about that down home legacy. Thank you so much, another spiritual brother of mine, Bishop Jack Bomar. And I want to thank my spiritual brother, Kevin Ross, for coming on. I also wanted to thank Joy O'Donnell for being with us. I didn't know we were going to go on through the whole hours. I would ask Joy 2 hours, Joy, to stay with us. But we have another special guest. We want to bring in some more wonderful, special feminine energy. And Cleona O'Hara, the CEO.
When it gets here. When it gets here. I said, when it gets here.
Okay.
It's not here yet. Not yet. She'll be here.
Let me do a story then while we're waiting. So I'm bankrupt. I'm upside down. I went bankrupt so fast I had to check out, book out of the library, how to go bankrupt by yourself. So things are anything but good. I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag for Hicksville, Long Island, New York, and not doing well. I pray to God, what do you want me to do? And God says, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to speak to people that care about things that matter, make a life-changing difference. I have roommates, and I go down and I say, look, tell me, do you know anyone young speaking? They said this young guy, Chip Collins, is speaking, is doing it just to the insurance industry. He wows my soul. The next day I go to see Reverend Ike, and he just got me totally awake. Within 2 weeks, now remember, I'm $2 million upside down, and within 2 weeks, Reverend Ike got my head right. I booked 28 talks. I'm getting paid for the 28 talks. I had this beat up old Volkswagen. I'm driving up to 175th and Broadway, parking it 2 or 3 blocks away. I didn't want anyone to see that I was that broke and that upside down, because Reverend Ike said, don't show your lack. You want to have lots so people give you lots, like you heard on the videos that we watched if you've been with us, or you can go back and watch a replay, which we will do, and put it on YouTube and everywhere else, all the streaming services. Point is, within 2 weeks, I said, well, if he's telling me I can have a new car now, I know what I want. I've been listening to Ricardo Montalban. I want a Chrysler Cordoba. I want it maroon. I want a leather top, and I want white Corinthian leather inside. And sure enough, one of the ladies I brought to church, her husband ran a car leasing company, and she says, don't you want a new car? I said, I sure do. So I go to her husband. I said, look, I'm booked out the next 2 weeks in advance. I'm doing 4 talks a day. I'm really making a lot of money, and I've got a book coming out. And he said, good, just go pick the car you want. And the next day I had a brand new car. The next Sunday I went to Reverend Ike, and Reverend Ike said, you're just using the principles. Keep using them. Never stop using it, because principle works for everyone who works principle. Principle is weightless. It's metaphysical. It is continuous. It is unstoppable. It is unlimited. 2 times 2 is a principle. It equals 4. It never wears out, rusts out, gets tired, goes on vacation, goes on holiday, takes a break. And he got me to understand that now that I am taking massive action, I'm getting massive result. I suddenly got the car. I paid off right away. You and I and everyone watching, everyone listening, and everyone get the book. And what I traveled around with Jim Rohn, and he said, if you can read and don't, you're no better than somebody who can't. He said, walking into your own library makes you smarter. I believe that's true. This book's going to make you spiritually wiser, more enlightened, more illuminated, richer, better, happier, and healthier than you've ever been. He says, you can't lose with the stuff I use. I say a book is the greatest, screamingest investment you can ever make. For a few dollars, you're going to get a life and a lifestyle that changes. How would I know that by tithing to Reverend Ike, I would end up becoming a multimillionaire? Remember, I was in remedial reading from first grade to sixth grade because my parents were immigrants from Denmark, did not really speak English. And now I'm world's best-selling author. All because this guy said, look, just turn up the potential. You've got 100% potential and you're using just a little of your potential. Everyone's here to have breakthroughs in their potential. And I'll just do a shout out for my dear friend, Ken Walls. He does the breakthrough training. Have I got the name right?
Breakthrough Walls.
Breakthrough Walls.
My podcast.
Yeah, well, that's because your last name's Walls, and he's been spending his whole life trying to break through. And I think as of today,
true story. Both instances, very true story.
I just couldn't resist the alliteration of it. It just sounded and felt so good to me. Because you and I are here to manifest what Christ said is, don't hide your light under a bushel. So metaphorically, if you're there, Reverend Ike always loved the physicality, the kinesthetics of taking off the bushel and letting your little light shine. And he'd sing This Little Light of Mine and sing it because he had a beautiful voice and he had a glorious choir behind him. And the whole audience would just rise up. It woke up the spirit in everyone.
Gentlemen, we have a few minutes, and is Cleona with us? Aren't we transitioning to Amazon soon? Let's get her in before.
I'll text you real quick.
I want to say she's here. I want to say something real fast, because once she comes on, we're done. You realize that, right? All of us are done. Cleona will own this space. But I just want to say this real fast. Like, I know there are people watching who've gone and looked at the link and thought, man, I don't know if I can afford to buy a book right now. I don't know if I can do it. And if you have that thought, that is the exact reason you need to get this book, and you need to read this book, and you need to implement this book into your life. It is the exact reason. So go get 2 books if you have that thought, and give one to somebody and read the other one. I'm telling you, it works. Let's bring on the amazing, the inimitable Cleona O'Hara, the CEO of the Napoleon Hill Institute, is joining us right now. Cleona, welcome.
Yay.
Hi, I'm so grateful to be here. Oh, I missed you all.
We missed you too.
For those of you that don't know it, she was kind enough to let Xavier and I and run behind the scenes again by Ken. The Napoleon Hill Institute had us take this book and air it literally to 180 countries around the world. She is a lovely Irish lady who has come from nowhere to somewhere great and wants to wake up the greatness in everyone and interface one of the books that even Reverend Ike talked about, Think and Grow Rich, by the Napoleon Hill, who, he took Andrew Carnegie's work and took it on steroids out to many for interviewing 500 people. With that, Cleona, please tell a little bit of your story and why you were kind enough to take Xavier and I under your wing, so to speak, and let us fly.
Oh, wow. I'm so honored and so grateful. I worked for Bob Proctor for several years. Bob was actually, he did the eulogy for Reverend Ike, and Bob is really important to me. Bob Proctor helped change my life. He introduced me to this whole world. And so for me, it was just an honor to be part of this and to help get this book out to the masses. I feel like I'm being called to serve because I came from nothing. I came from Northern Ireland and from poverty. I had absolutely no money. I arrived as an immigrant woman with only this American dream in my heart. And I started applying these principles. I started studying Reverend Ike, studying Napoleon Hill, and Bob led me on this journey. And so I feel a responsibility that we have to share this with the world. Once you start waking up to the truth of who you really are, and once I started waking up to the truth of who I am, I know I have a duty and a responsibility to serve to the rest of the world. And so we brought in, of course, Xavier and Mark and his beautiful goddess wife and Ken, and we're on a mission. And you can't afford to not buy the book. Put it that way. can't
That's
afford to not
true.
buy the book, never mind 1 or 2, buy 3. Buy at least 3 of the books. And I'll tell you this, Mark and Xavier, the whole of Napoleon Hill Institute and all of our clients and everyone that follows Napoleon Hill, they're all listening to Reverend Ike audios every night now. Isn't that incredible? I get goosebumps even when I think about it right now. Like we are reprogramming subconscious minds through your father's work, through your meditations too, Xavier. We're changing lives every day. And it's our responsibility to get this out to the masses because there's a better way to live. And I'm living proof of that.
Cleona, thank you so much. You're such a point of grace. You have such an amazing, graceful energy, and it has been a wonderful experience working with you and your people and the Institute. And I have such respect for the work that you do and the way you've deployed these coaches out into the world to help people change their mind, to change their mindset, to come to understand a lot of the principles from Think and Grow Rich that my father also studied and respected greatly. And we're helping to change hearts, heal minds, lift spirits, upon wings of inspiration, so that people's spirits can truly soar the way that they're meant to be, into greater freedom, into greater joy and happiness, health, love, success, prosperity, wealth, abundance, yes, and even more money in their lives.
Yes, yes. This is how I feel, even just, being part of this and all of you watching this. Living this way, this is freedom for me. It's the joy and the peace that I have in my heart now, that I know that I'm the creator of my own reality. And that's what I've learned from your father, from Napoleon Hill, from Bob. I'm the creator. There's no excuses. So now let's share this with the whole world. It's a responsibility and a movement. I feel like it's this movement because we're bringing back these legendary teachers, Napoleon, your father, Reverend Ike's work. This is a movement, especially for the young people. We need to get this out to the young people as well. Yeah.
So then they'll take self-determination action. Because you brought up Bob, and we never mentioned him. Bob Proctor and I owned 2 companies together. I was his great friend. We helped lots of people become millionaires, and he obviously loved Reverend Ike. Bob and Reverend Ike were born about the same time, and within days of each other back in the 30s. And it's amazing. Bob said, look, we both came through the Depression. We both came through the war. This is a ragtag time. Both of us basically had one mother, running it. And it's so touching to my heart and soul to read Bob saying, hey, look, I would set my alarm for 1 a.m. That's the time he came on. And Bob was from Toronto, Canada, and ultimately got so rich, in Proctor Lane. I was at his home and stayed there a lot of times. Anyhow, the point is he said, I can't believe Reverend Ike would be telling the truth, and there's no way you couldn't believe it, no matter who you were, right? There are a lot of people going, oh, he's just flamboyant and flashy. No, truth is truth. Like he'd say, no matter who says it. So I see you ready to say something to that, Cleona. So how do you see the integration of Bob Proctor and Reverend Ike and all the work we're doing?
And this is the foreword, by the way, in the book by Bob Proctor.
Yeah.
Foreword of the book has Bob's message, folks. My God, look at that. So, when I hear the people or the critics or whatever you want to call them, they just don't know. They're just not aware. I have firsthand knowledge and experience with Bob and who he really was and his heart. And even like this book that I have in my hand is an original book that Bob signed the front of it. And Bob would always sign, if he would autograph any book, he would always write, with love and light, with love and light. And I mean, I get emotional even when I think about it because, right? And this is why we're here. We're here to bring light. We're here to bring light. There's a lot of dark places and a lot of dark a darkness in people's minds right now. Over 90% of the population is living in fear and doubt and worry. And we are here to bring light. Your Father's work and the work that we're doing is to bring light to these people. So Bob would always sign everything with love and light. And I want to be like Bob Proctor one day. I want to be like your father one day. I want to give even a fraction of the service that they have given, because then I can say, wow, my life was worth something. I gave something of value. I've been of service. So
I can say that you are like Reverend Ike, and you are like Bob Proctor, and you are like Cleona O'Hara. You're already there.
Yeah, you're living in total integrity in our experiences. You said you'd do it. For some of you who don't know and didn't go, you can still go, I think, for a couple more days to the Prosperity Summit 2023.com and watch these incredible interviews. We brought the best minds of our time that all knew Reverend Ike and all knew Napoleon Hill's work. And we integrated it and we shared it because, look, the soul, when Jack and I wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, Dr. Canfield and I, we thought the soul of America is in trouble. What we discovered, because we sold so many books worldwide, is the soul of the world is in trouble. Again, I think, and I'll live this to me, and I know I'm going to get critics writing me, and that's fine. I can take your criticism because I know who I am and whose I am and who I am, and what I'm dedicated to doing. You know, we're in a cellular time, and the soul is in deep pain. It's in hurt, and it's a time of transition. We're in the winter, and we're going to go into a spring, because of the stuff Cleona's doing, the stuff that Xavier, I, and Ken are doing to usher in a new, brighter day with a lot what Cleona just said is light, because in the beginning was light. And what Bob Proctor always taught is that only two ways to look at the university, theologically and scientifically. And theologically, God is. Scientifically, light is. And Einstein, my teacher, always said E equals MC squared. Energy is. Therefore, God is light, God is energy, so God is energy if you take the syllogism and unwrap it. And we're in that exciting time that when you get that light inside you, your energy starts to explode. You have a fulfillment, and Reverend I could say you have the fulfillment if you have the fulfillment of life, meaning you're thrilled to be here. When I first met Cleona, somebody told me, you ought to call her and tell her. She said, I'm all in. And Cleona, why? Let's go back to you. Why were you all in? You'd never met Xavier before. You knew me a little bit because Bob had no better sense than to brag about me because he loved me and I love Bob. So why were you willing to be all in on somebody that, because everybody comes to you with their stuff, say, oh, make me famous.
Yeah. Well, because it's Reverend Ike and it's the truth. It's the truth. And I know if Bob associated with you, Mark, then I know who you are, right? Show me the 5 people you surround yourself with. If Bob was your business partner, then I know who you are. And then obviously Bob loved Reverend Ike. And I know Bob Proctor. I know who he is. I know what he gave to the world. I know his heart. So I want to be around people like you, and I want to be part of serving and contributing even the smallest way. So how could you not be all in? This is why we were put on earth. We're here. I mean, some of you may have heard my story, but I asked God when I was broken and I was on my knees and I almost lost my life. I said, God, why are we here? Tell me what to do. And I heard clearly, go serve, go serve. And I know that's why we're here.
Well, let me just talk to that and then talk to Bob Proctor. So Bob Proctor and I can't remember what the reason was. Maybe Xavier remembers, but we were both in Malibu, and he had a home in Malibu on the ocean at the time. And for whatever reason, I called him and I said, hey, Xavier, we're in a neighborhood. How'd you like Proctor and I to come and visit? And we had a limo driver, and he drove up there. And limo driver thought we were going to be there for like 10 minutes, which is what I originally thought. But Xavier happens to be a master maestro. You see behind him drums. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy goes to Africa to study with the best drummers in the world. And while he is very humble, which just means teachable, and he is exceedingly teachable and a great friend and coach, and I learned a lot from him. But he had those drums, like you saw in one of the James Bond movies, that are as big as a wall. And he said, you guys want to pound on them and Bob and I got into it, and he started teaching us, and we were, because it just, the beat raises the cellular energy, and that's why he has soul streaming. And I don't care how you get in, you got to have our book, because it'll help you raise your vibration. So like Xavier, you become a great musician. Like Cleona, you start to run an institute with literally coaches around the world. Like Ken, you break through walls. We're in, for those of us that are watching, I think you'd agree with us, we're in the most exciting times ever. But there are a lot of people trying to pull you down. It's like, what happens is, if you put a frog in hot water, it bounces out immediately. If you put a frog in cold water and you start to heat it up, they'll melt. A lot of people are where Cleona said, they're fear-based. And you've only got two choices, seems to me. You're either fear-based or faith-based. And faith, like earlier, Xavier was quoting the Apostle Paul, faith is substance, tangible substance that things hope for. Like, I hope to be world's best-selling author. Now I am. Cleona hopes to get to billions and billions of people with the Napoleon Institute, and she will do it. Glenn, I can go on and on about each of us, but Xavier and I want to see millions of people having their lives transformed by reading this book, and they won't stop. It's sort of like chicken soup. Once it gained momentum, which we're gaining today, it took off, and we sold 1.5 million, then we sold 5 million a year, and then 10 million a year, and then 15 million a year, and it's still selling, and the movies are coming out on it. It's exciting, and we're at the threshold of the greatest time humanity ever had, because we can end starvation, we can end hunger, we can end poverty. They all belong one place only, and that's a museum. Yeah.
Come on with it. This is.
I just had an idea, Ken. Uh-oh.
You had what?
I had an idea.
Uh-oh. I gotta go. Bye. I'm kidding.
Get ready. Here she goes.
I love your ideas. Are you kidding me? Come on. What is it? What's the idea?
Whoever buys 3 or more books, I want to invite you all to study the book with me. Once a week, live classes, once a week. We'll figure out the dates and the times. And you send your receipts to the Reverend Ike, whoever's in charge there, the receipt to the customer service, right?
Yep.
And we'll take you through the book. We'll do a book study together, and I'll throw in so many extras. I'll throw in the self-discipline camp. I'll give you some Napoleon Hill audios and work. I'll make something beautiful. If you all buy 3 or more, we're going to study together. I will even coach you all. We'll do something wonderful.
You have no idea what you were just given the opportunity for. Like, take her up on it, unless you're happy being miserable.
And Xavier and I'll pop in now and then and help her, because here's a woman that literally wants more for you than you want for yourself, because she found the more in her by studying Napoleon Hill and Bob Proctor and Ike stuff and all that. And when you decide in favor of yourself, which is what we're asking you to do here, you decide in favor of yourself. And the best investment you can ever make, the richest investor of all time, Warren Buffett says, is first thing to invest in is yourself. Doesn't matter what happens to the economy. I was in a down economy, and I went straight up in 1974 to now, and have not gone down. I've had my hiccups, but by and large, I've overall scaled and kept scaling. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an offer of offers. We did not, unless Xavier called her privately and twisted her arm, and I don't think he did. He could have, but I don't think so. This is just her spontaneous invitation to your greatness. Every one of you deserves to become all you can, to fulfill your mission. And I don't know what your DNA code is, but she's going to help you get from here to there. That's my problem, because she is omnicompetent. That means all competent.
We can study it together, and then we'll give them the audios. They'll listen to them. I'll give them a program to follow, and we're going to get results. Not just buy the book and leave it on the shelf. Let's get the books. Let's study it together. Listen to the audios at night, and then let's get results within a couple of months. We're going to see big transformations, and then you will share it with the world, because I can't do it by myself.
Thank you so much, Cleona. I appreciate this. We appreciate this. KK says, I'm in it with Cleona. And so, Cleona, you're exemplifying what you're bringing, you brought in the principle of love and light. Now, of course, love is the ultimate commandment. I say it's the only commandment. Love each other as you love yourself, which is an understanding that we love ourselves correctly, first of all, right?
Yeah.
And that's as my dad taught. We come to understand the God in us, and God is love. So we come to love ourselves. So you're exemplifying that. And the light, you know, it says Christ is the light of the world. And as my dad taught, the Christ is the one who knows that I and my source are one. And so that Christ light exists within each one of us. And each one of us is therefore the light of the world. And when we turn on that light, we illuminate it for each other, for everybody else. And as Joy was saying earlier, our interconnectedness, when we turn this light on together, it just creates such a brilliant atmosphere. And the darkness then exists simply as something to cast interesting shadow play on the wall, to give us contrast, just to give us another dimensional, oh, that's an interesting perspective on things. It's not this big, overwhelming thing that then can consumes us. The light puts the darkness in its place and in its space. So thank you for bringing your love, your light, offering what you've just ordered, this.
Yeah, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you all know Reese Witherspoon has her book club. Oprah has her book club. You just got the mother of self-help action book clubs, Cleona, to be the godmother of all these book clubs. Because if you've been in any of my seminars or listened to me on YouTube or anything, I say, look, you got to read a book a week for the rest of your life. And Patrick Bet-David, who now has 200 million people listening to him, says, look, he was told when he was nobody from nowhere, Iran, and arrives here as a refugee, get into self-help action. And then he said, he was just asked by a guy who I love a lot, Dr. Jordan Peterson, what makes you so successful? He said, everyone said, read self-help action books. But he said, most people read it and stop when they make 100 grand or $1 million or 10 million, and they flatten out. He said, I never stopped over improving. I got on the self-help action kick and never stopped. I can promise you, as somebody who was very close to Reverend Ike and was at his house on Broadway at 61st Street, I think the whatever you call it, penthouse, and I was there for meals. And the first thing you walk in is that his library was like mine. Here in my library, I have over 50,000 books. A lot of them given to me, but most every one of them has touched me. I've highlighted it. I've underlined it. And people ask me about a book, and I can usually say what I read in it, which always astounds my wife. How do you remember all that stuff? Because the input is important, because I know down the line I'm going to have to the output. And if Warren Buffett, who studies 5 hours a day, and Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, said, I was birthed on books and weaned on my mother's milk. And the guy reads 60 hours a week in addition to running all 7 multi-billion-dollar companies. And if you watch my video on him, he has a 200 IQ. I'm telling you, books are the answer. And what Cleona is going to do is make sure you understand everything, and you'll be able to ask her any question you want, and she'll either give you the answer or she'll find the answer before the next time. I can talk to that. And people are saying, well, how do I get this? Just send your receipts to Rev, R-E-V, Ike, I-K-E, book.com. And you're
there,
in this.
Right there it is.
Yeah, it's
Reach
right
out to Cheryl at Rev Ike Legacy, and we'll get the information to you as soon as it's available.
Yeah,
and I'm in too. I'll help in any way I can.
Oh, this is going to be fun, everyone.
It's going to be great, and I will definitely be there to participate and to interact and just help any way that I can to communicate these wonderful truths and these powerful.
I mean, what James Jordan did. He bought 2 more because of Cleona. Come on.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, as good as it is, it can get better and better and better. And that's what Reverend Ike taught. And that's what she will be teaching in this wonderful book club that I didn't see coming. But as good as it is, it's getting better for, I'll talk for Xavier and I and the whole Eikerenkoetter family. It just is, it's exciting because I think this is a transformative time in human history. but you got to transform. If you want to change the world, you got to change you. You got to change you first, and then you change the world. You try to change the world and don't change you, it doesn't change.
Yeah.
So true.
And Xavier, maybe you'll bless us with one of your meditations at the book club.
No doubt.
They are good
Like,
meditations.
ow, twist my arm. Ouch.
I've been listening every night to your meditation,
Amazing.
especially miracles.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, this is incredible. Healing, healing, healing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a powerful one. And that, relates directly into what my dad was saying in that clip where he referenced the loaves and fishes. The prayer and the manifestation was Jesus looking to heaven. Thank you, Father. Boom. And you manifest the loaves, you multiply the loaves and fishes miraculously. And the thing about miracles, one of the many things that miracles is that is something beyond our ability to imagine or expect or believe. Not just the biggest, greatest thing you could ever expect, imagine, or believe, but beyond our capacity of imagining, expecting, and believing it. When you let go and say, thank you, Father. Like I said, my dad thought he was handing a 10 to the valet. It was a $50 bill. The guy says, thank you. Boom. That 50 was his. When I'm handing this book just to show people when they say, oh, thank you. Is this mine? Yes, it is. Enjoy the book. In that moment of thank you, you hit this vibration that is pure gratitude embodied, and the love and light that you spoke about. That's the place, that's the resonance you live in. So yeah, we will do some meditations to get into that thank you source state of being where it can all instantly manifest for us, and everything that is unlike God can automatically dissipate.
Fall away.
So
Exactly.
two things to hitchhike on. First of all, he's right about the love and light. It'll make you bigger, better, brighter. We got two questions. One is, what's the limit on the deadline? I'm not sure what that is, but let's do it within the next 2 weeks, everybody. And number two is it I'm going to ask Cleona, if as you do these, you're going to tape them, record them, and people can go back to it that are joiners. Is that correct?
Yes, we'll record them and they'll have access to them. Yes.
This Doppler effect where you drop a stone in the water and then it goes out, that's what we want. We want this to literally, ladies and gentlemen, with your help, let's wrap it around the world. All of us know somebody somewhere, and we've got people on, it said from India a second ago, and from UK, the United Kingdom. That's England, for those of you that don't know your geography. The point is that we're here to help people everywhere. We don't see any limit. If somebody's in Africa, great. If they're in Japan, great. We're here to source and serve everybody, and ultimately it'll get into their language.
This has been absolutely amazing. I still have one more video to share.
Please.
And I want to show that if you guys are you cool with that?
We're cool.
Do it.
Mark said we're cool. All right, here we go. I'm going to show one more, and then we're going to go. And I got to tell you, I know Cleona very, very well. She's a very dear friend of mine. Everything you guys are hearing her say, she means it, and she literally lives from her heart to help people, to serve. And here's the thing I know about her that she said without saying it exactly like this. Every time she tries to go a different route that isn't necessarily serving, God pushes her back and says, no, serve. Just serve. She said that. You said that on my show. It was like, you're amazing. I love it. So here we go. One more video, and then we'll chat and wrap things up. And we're going to head over to Amazon Live here in about 40 minutes. So I'd love to have Cleona jump on with us there too. So hang on real quick. Hang on. Let's watch this video.
I'm inviting every one of you here and every one of you looking in by television to discover the power of God within you. Discover the presence of God within you. And when you discover the presence and the power of God within you, you can break the chains of anything that binds you. Because when you discover the presence of God within you, the power of God within you, then you become free. And as we like to say it around here, you discover who and what you are in God, and who and what God is in you. And then you are free. This is what the mastermind Jesus meant when he said, you shall know the truth, and the truth will make you free. Again, a word from the scriptures. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. The power of God within you. The presence of God within you. Combine to make you greater than any outside power or any slavery to any kind of habit that you may have. And many times, you know, people say to me, well, Reverend Ike, what are you doing for society? What are you doing? Why don't you have a drug program to help people get off of drugs? Oh, yes, I have a drug program. And I'm not knocking the other drug programs. However you can get rid of the drug habit, you get rid of it. But I've got a different kind of drug program. I have a somewhat unique program, and it's called the power of God in you. Come on, why don't you shout with me, the power of God in you. That's my drug program. And we're so happy that untold numbers of people come to these services. And we tell them and we teach them about the power of God within, the presence of God within. And everyone who discovers this power, this presence within, is set free. And not only that, we teach people that they should be something, do something, and have something. And I make no apologies for the fact that this is not a be nothing, do nothing, have nothing religion. Come on, I need a big hand on that. Call me a materialist if you want to. I don't care. I say this is not a be nothing, do nothing, have nothing religion. This is a be something, do something, have something philosophy.
Wow.
Wow.
The presence of God in me breaks the chains of anything that binds me. What else do you need to say? The presence of God in me breaks chains of anything that binds me.
Abe Lincoln took the shackles off your arms and legs, and Reverend Ike, one wise man said, took the shackles off our minds.
Exactly.
And that's really what this is about. And Xavier and I have written a book. We want you to have the book, get 3 of them. Cleona is going to take you through and start this wondrous book club that I say is going to be pregnant and grow and develop and help millions of people break through all the limitation they've got going on.
Absolutely.
Yes. And congratulations to everyone I see in the chat that have bought the 3 books. I can't wait to meet you. So is it Salome? Congratulations, KK, and to James and everyone that bought the 3 books. I look forward to meeting you all at the book club. Once you send in your receipts, we'll work out the details. You'll get a link to register for the calls. Let us figure all that out within the next 24 hours. But I think you need to make a decision before, I think within a week at the latest, within the next few days, make a decision. Come join us. And let's bring light. Let's bring light and become aware and grow in awareness together, because this is the best way to live.
I learned.
I want to shout out too to Salome in Kenya. Kenya is a place that is dear to my heart. I have a Maasai brother in the community there in Oh my goodness. Just, I love Maasai people so much. And I also want to thank Miles Miller says, Rev Ike has gotten me through some tremendous stretches. And we're seeing so many just great testimonies here on this chat. I wish we could capture this chat and, share it at a later point. I think that we can. But one of the important things that my dad mentioned there,
Yes.
he was criticized for materialism, which, by people who didn't understand where he was coming from. My dad played with the illusion, with manifesting. And he was able to manifest things because he understood, first of all, that presence of God within. And as he said, it is the presence of God in me, that understanding that comes first.
Mm.
In all things, get understanding. And seek you first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things shall be added unto you. When you reach that vibrational level where you understand that all of the physical is but an illusion, you can have as many physical playthings as you want. You can have the cars, you can have the homes. These are toys and things, and it's all for fun. It's all just a part of the joy. But what he understood is that the substance of all things is in the seat of the soul. And when we are in touch with that, we create for the glory and the greater good of everyone that's in our reality. Yes, we create fun things for ourselves, beginning with health, happiness, love.
Mm-hmm.
But we also create an environment where other people can succeed and prosper, and understanding that we're interconnected, and that when I raise my vibration, I'm making it possible for someone else who sees me or comes into my life or into my sphere to also raise their vibrational level. And we can all do this together. We can all go over the top. He also mentioned that he had a drug program. There were so many things going on at the church. Yes, counseling for drugs, counseling for businesses, counseling for relationships and marriages, all kinds of things. And my father was a tremendous giver. Cleona has come on, and each of our guests have been so gracious in giving what they're giving. And Cleona is embodying this giving nature, this giving heart, by offering these teachings through the form of the book club, so that we can all come together, touch and agree, and create a higher vibrational field and come into that thank you source state where everything is possible to manifest at once. But my father gave in so many ways that will never be spoken of, because he didn't blow his horn that way. Some of it is in the book, and you'll hear some of the stories, and you'll hear some of the many ways he gave, supported so many educations for people from preschool all the way up to people becoming doctors. And at least one of the doctors gives their story with Reverend Ike in the book. David Montgomery, as a matter of fact, is one of them. So the giving, when we're in that state of thank you source, and the loaves and fishes manifest, look how we are giving in that instance, because we take on so much that it's not about just ourselves. We have so much we cannot contain the goodness, the bounty. I said on your summit, Cleona, that prosperity has to do with unpacking our bounty. Well, look at Jesus. Thank you, Father. Loaves and fishes magnified, multiplied, and he feeds a multitude of people. That's how we want to live this life, manifesting this bounty, this abundance, unpacking it for ourselves and for the world, and blessing everybody that comes around.
Your father, the thing, I'm telling you, I've been on here 3.5 hours with you guys.
Oh,
has it really been that long? Wow.
it is a marathon, huh?
Well, it doesn't feel like that long. It's crazy. But one of the things that he said that it's probably of the 3.5 hours that struck me the hardest, right there between the eyes, is he said, Jesus did not beg or plead. He just said, thank you. That is the most profound thing I think I've ever heard in all of my religious teachings in 55 years on this planet. Like, he didn't ask, he didn't beg and plead. And so many people are going to God and begging and pleading instead of just saying thank you, as if it's already done.
I'm writing that down again, Ken. Thank you.
Jeez,
Right.
oh man, like that.
And
If that's got to get you. Like if you don't get that, you don't get it.
Because we're supposed to believe we already have received.
Right.
So if we're begging, how do we believe we've received it?
There it is. Jesus
Exactly.
didn't say gimme, he said thank you. He just said thank you.
Yes, because you're coming from a scarcity mentality when you're begging.
Yes.
So
And in
go
God
get
there is no lack.
This is what we've learned. And coming from Northern Ireland, where we call it paradigms, the programming around money is so strong. We were told money is evil. You shouldn't want money. That's why I didn't have any for so many years. But now I understand the truth, and the truth shall set us free. And now we're going to set a lot of people free.
Absolutely. And my own grandmother, my dad's own mother, believed that, for example, that Black people were put on the earth to suffer. That's one of the things that you're going to read in the book, and how my dad came out of that lack mentality and the sense of impoverishment. I mean, believing that you're placed here to suffer. And we need to get out of that, because, you know, we all suffer in our own ways. And where we're doing that, we're living in scarcity. Even if we're millionaires or billionaires, there are places in our lives where we suffer. And we need to learn how to go into those places and liberate those parts of us that are suffering. We can get into that in the training as well.
As we conclude, I'll just say that Reverend Ike always said, you make the decision and consciousness imploded into the subconscious. It'll wondrously, with faith, give you the provision. And that's what Cleona was saying. And when Andrew Carnegie asked Napoleon Hill, do you want to write up the principles of philosophy of personal achievement and success? I'll introduce you to the 500 most people, but I'm not paying you a penny. You have to live the principle, which is what Reverend Ike taught, what I've lived and shown. At 29 seconds exactly, Andy pulls out his stopwatch and said, if you'd gone to 30 seconds, I wouldn't do it. And here's the reason. The reason is successful people, the 500 people Napoleon Hill interviewed, if you make the decision, the provision's already made. Like she said, it's already done. You just catch up to it. The point is, if you take over 30 seconds, you can't do it. You've wasted your life. You squandered your decision. Don't squander your future provision by not getting 3 books, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. You know what Bob taught me on that exact point? He said, if you don't make a decision within 60 seconds, your paradigm's making the decision for you. The paradigm is the programmed part of you, your lower self. So yes, Mark. And so now when I have to make a decision, I make it fast, because I don't want my program to make it for me. Yes.
Wow. Yes. So Reverend Ike was very much a liberator of minds. And to read this book is to understand how to have your mind liberated. I recently presented this book to Dean Carter from Morehouse University, a giant in the civil rights movement, who is in the lineage of Martin Luther King. And he has such respect for my father as my father did to him. And so my father was working the other flank of the civil rights movement by helping people to liberate their minds so that they could accept the fact that I have a dignity, I have a wealth, I have a human value that is 100%. And therefore, yes, by right of the God in me, I have a right to vote, and I'm going to exercise it. I have a right to be prosperous in this society, and I'm going to exercise it. I'm going to claim what is mine, and I am going to show it forth. So invite you to join. Get the book. Let's work it. Let's liberate our minds so that we can go from glory to glory together.
Hey, I have, and by the way, I just have to say thank you to you, Xavier. You wrote a beautiful note inside this book to me, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But I just ordered 3 more books too, because I'm gonna bless some people. I'm telling you, you got to understand something. Like I gave the girl that cuts my hair $100 tip 2 days ago, because for Christmas and whatever. And I'm not saying that to brag, because I know that by giving, it's going to come from somewhere. I think Cleona even said that to me one time. Like, we just give and don't worry about it. Go get 3 copies of this book. join the book club. You want to be coached by Cleona. Trust me, you want to be coached by her. And or you can just go pay her $10,000 and not buy 3 books. And I'm telling you, go get 3 books, get in the book club, get the coaching, and it's going to adjust your trajectory, I promise.
Yes.
So on behalf of everybody, we thank each and every one of you for watching, sharing, furthering the light, reading the book, and sharing with all your friends. Thank you from my heart, Cleona's, Xavier's, and Ken's.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'm going to end the live stream. You all stay on here with me, though. But thank you to everyone. Go get the book. Go get it right now. We will be on Amazon Live in 25 minutes. If you want to join us there, go to kenwallslive.com. If somebody would type that in the chat so everybody can get it, it'll be on my Amazon influencer account, kenwallslive.com. You'll be able to join us over there at 4 o'clock Central Standard Time, which is in 24 minutes. We will see you all over there. Thank you so much. Blessings to everyone. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
all. God bless.
God bless. Thank you so
God bless
much. See you
All
soon.
Thank
See you all later. Bye-bye.